Story 1.
I caught my wife cheating through hidden cameras while I was away and planned my revenge carefully. My girlfriend and I crossed paths in a unique and sad way. It happened during Hurricane Katrina when her husband tragically died, and their entire house was swept away by the force of nature. The news was full of sad stories, and I was deeply concerned about their fate, but I had no idea that fate had a surprise in store for me. On a regular Sunday, I found myself in church, unaware of an unexpected encounter awaiting me. Our church had become a refuge for many families affected by the hurricane. The pastor's call for volunteers to provide temporary shelter to these families struck a chord with me. At first, the idea of opening my home to strangers was daunting, but as the pastor spoke, he shed light on a truth I hadn't realized. Many of us, including me, are often away from home due to work, leaving our homes empty most of the time. The pastor's words resonated with me because my new job as a doctor's assistant required long hours and frequent absences from home. Considering my situation, I realized that I had recently bought a spacious house with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. Given my busy work schedule, it made sense to offer temporary housing to those in need. In my mind, they would use a guest room as a safe haven on their journey to stability. The empty space in my house seemed like an opportunity I had overlooked as I focused on my job. Additionally, I believed that doing a good deed might lead to positive outcomes in my own life. At 29, I was a single man facing dating challenges. Despite my efforts, the women I liked didn't reciprocate, and those I got along with turned out to be incompatible. Recognizing this, I decided to live alone and wait for the right person. With renewed determination, I volunteered to offer shelter to a family in need. When I offered to help, my pastor introduced me to a 28-year-old widow radiating beauty who had lost her husband in Hurricane Katrina. She had 2 young daughters, aged 5 and 7, and their story deeply moved me. When I met her, my heart was touched and we immediately connected. Her sincerity, kindness, and compatibility confirmed I had made the right decision. She and her children settled into my house quickly, and I ensured their comfort by buying new furniture, electronics, and groceries in the first few days. Work kept me busy, and I almost forgot about the people in my house. But the following morning, I returned from a business trip to a pleasant surprise. There was a soft knock on my bedroom door, and the smell of a freshly cooked breakfast filled the air. Opening the door, I was greeted by her smiling face as she brought a tray of scrambled eggs, sizzling bacon, and a cup of hot coffee to the table. All irritation disappeared as I embraced the gesture with gratitude. Breakfast in bed, a cherished childhood memory, became a regular occurrence. She treated me with great care, even tying my shoelaces before I left for work. Her children were well-mannered and addressed me with respect, calling me Dad. I became attached to them and hoped to adopt them someday. They not only took care of me but also cleaned the house and cooked meals with the money I provided. She eventually got a job, showing her determination to be independent. Over time, she transformed from a guest into a family member in my house. We developed a strong bond, and I found myself deeply attached to her and her children. While I knew she wouldn't live with me permanently due to her job, I wished she could stay longer. The days passed quickly, and her presence became an integral part of my life. Our house radiated warmth and satisfaction when she and her children were around. Deep down, I understood that she would eventually gain independence and establish her own home. I wished her success and happiness, but the thought of her leaving stirred conflicting emotions in me. As our bond deepened, the chemistry and connection between us became evident. We found excuses to touch each other around the house, creating a strong attraction. Even simple moments, like when she cooked in the kitchen and I stood behind her, sparked desire. One evening, as we watched a late-night show and laughed together, she leaned over and rested her head on my shoulder, deepening our connection. Emotions took over, and we shared a passionate kiss, igniting further closeness on the couch. Since that night, she became more than a woman seeking refuge in my house. Our physical closeness grew, and I cherished every moment together. However, she still lived in the guest room, and the direction of our relationship remained uncertain. She had her doubts, and I respected her boundaries. In just 3 months, she landed a job as a cashier at the nearby grocery store, which marked a crucial step toward her independence. While I willingly shouldered the financial responsibilities, covering all the expenses, she used her earnings to support her children's kindergarten and buy clothes. It felt like a partnership built on love and mutual understanding, and I was prepared to keep helping her as much as I could. I stood by her side, offering unwavering support as she worked to rebuild her life. As Christmas approached, I invited her and her kids to celebrate the holiday with my family, introducing her as my girlfriend. I was relieved when my mother warmly welcomed them. She cared deeply for her and her children. However, in private, my mother shared her concerns with me. She reminded me of her children from a previous marriage and suggested I consider finding a partner without such responsibilities. Her words made me contemplate the nature of our relationship. The challenges ahead were undeniable. This relationship was unlike any I'd encountered before. It involved not only our connection, but also the integration of her children into my life. Despite my mother's warnings, I couldn't ignore the deep bond between us and the love I had for her and her children. After a heart-to-heart conversation with my mother about my girlfriend and her children, I realized her worries stemmed from love. She only wanted what was best for me. I reassured my mother, acknowledging her care and guidance, but I couldn't disregard the profound love I found in this incredible woman and her children. I reminded her that she longed for me to be in a relationship, and now she appeared concerned about the added responsibilities. In my eyes, my girlfriend was everything I ever dreamed of. She remained the same loving and compassionate person I met 4 months ago without any major issue. She exemplified the qualities of a responsible and caring mother for her children, and I couldn't ask for more. Her inner and outer beauty continued to captivate me, and my love for her deepened every day. Her presence filled my life with positivity and rejuvenation, especially after returning from work trips. Being with her and her children brought me joy and happiness that felt surreal. Our connection was genuinely extraordinary, and I couldn't imagine my life without her. Despite the strong daily bond we shared, she consistently chose to sleep in the guest room. On one of these evenings, I mustered the courage to ask why she preferred not to spend the night in my bed. Her unexpected response made me feel guilty for bringing up such a sensitive topic. She delicately explained that she hadn't spent a night in someone else's bed since her late husband passed away. Her words carried both tenderness and pain, making me regret approaching the subject. I hugged her tightly at that moment, understanding the depth of her emotions. I realized she needed time and understanding to heal from the pain of her past. Recognizing this, I gladly gave her the space she needed. However, one evening, upon returning home from work, a strange suspicion crept in. I noticed that my beloved cashew nuts and malt from the refrigerator had been eaten. This puzzled me because my girlfriend and her children had no interest in these snacks. In fact, my girlfriend disliked them due to their high-calorie content. Since I knew she wasn't a fan of cashews and malt, it seemed unlikely that she was responsible for their disappearance. Rather than confront her about it, I decided not to make a big deal out of it. Yet, curiosity got the better of me, and I jokingly asked her 7-year-old daughter, with whom I often exchanged playful banter. To my surprise, she mentioned a name I'd never heard before and accused this mysterious man of being the snack thief. At first, I thought it was just another playful exchange, but her serious tone and detailed account caught me off guard. It was evident she wasn't joking. According to her, a specific person came to our house when I was away for work, even staying overnight with her mother. She expressed strong disapproval of this man, leaving me in shock. The underlying message in her words was incredible because the thought of my girlfriend being unfaithful had never crossed my mind. I trusted her completely and couldn't fathom her being unfaithful. A whirlwind of emotions, from disbelief to anger and eventually a headache, overwhelmed me as the truth unfolded. The weight of her daughter's words instilled undeniable certainty and drove me to search for concrete evidence. Driven by the need to uncover the reality of what transpired during my 3-day absence from work, I resorted to installing hidden cameras on the porch and in the living room, discreetly recording. I anxiously awaited my return, mentally preparing for the painful truth that awaited me. As I delved into the footage, the shocking truth lay bare before me. I witnessed a man coming to my house during my absence, brazenly spending the night with my girlfriend. To make matters worse, he shamelessly indulged in my beloved nuts and malt, and even had the audacity to claim my chair. The sight of this uninvited guest assuming my role in the sanctity of my own home filled me with anger and a sense of betrayal. It was a painful truth to accept, realizing that my girlfriend had deceived me in such a profound way. Following this heart-wrenching revelation, my heart shattered into pieces, and I felt like a complete fool for having placed such unwavering trust in her. The pain and devastation were too intense to immediately confront her. I needed time to process the betrayal and come to terms with the harsh reality that now loomed over our once loving relationship. I tried to understand why she had chosen to hurt me so deeply, considering that I had invested all my emotional and physical strength into our relationship. In the days that followed, my emotions were constantly in turmoil as I embarked on a journey of deep self-reflection. It was challenging for me to comprehend the person she had become and the reasons behind her betrayal. The strong love that once bound us was now broken. My mind kept replaying our shared moments, desperately seeking any hints of her betrayal. But this only intensified my confusion and deepened the wounds of betrayal. Filled with disappointment and distrust toward women, I began mentally distancing myself from relationships. When I finally gathered the courage to confront her about the hidden camera recording, emotions overwhelmed me, creating a tense atmosphere. I called her into my room and suggested we watch the video. As we watched, tears streamed down her face, and she pleaded with me, admitting that this was not the way she wanted me to discover the truth. Overwhelmed with emotions, I insisted on knowing the identity of the man caught on the video. She explained that he was her ex-boyfriend from New Orleans, who had sought refuge in a shelter after surviving a devastating flood. I was taken aback when she disclosed that he would visit our house in my absence. My confusion deepened because I had believed her before when she claimed she had never cheated. It became painfully clear that her words about loyalty to her late husband were fiction, as spending a night with another man shattered this illusion. This revelation cast doubt on other truths I held dear. As she continued revealing her secrets, it became apparent that she had become pregnant at a young age, but the father of her children had abandoned her. When she explained why she lied about her husband's passing away, I was shocked to my core. She admitted she wanted to see how people treated the bereaved and craved the sympathy and support a widow received. At that moment, I was hit with a wave of bewilderment, realizing that the woman I had welcomed into my life and home was a stranger. The weight of betrayal crushed me, eroding trust and security in our relationship. Overcome by fear and uncertainty, I found the courage to make the painful decision to ask her to leave my house that evening. In the web of deceit she had spun, I could find no solace or peace because I could no longer hide from the person responsible for such a web of lies. While the severity of her deception warranted immediate expulsion, a sense of responsibility for her 2 daughters tugged at my heart. I couldn't bear the thought of leaving innocent children without a roof over their heads, especially considering they had been ensnared in their mother's lies. Empathy compelled me to protect and care for them. It was with a heavy heart that I informed her she had to leave my house the next day, but I couldn't simply abandon the children to their fate. Instead, I made it my mission to secure their well-being. I made the firm decision to rent an apartment for an extended stay, providing them with temporary shelter and stability. My intent was driven solely by compassion for her daughters, devoid of any remnants of affection for her. If it had been just her, I wouldn't have hesitated to send her away the same evening. Watching them leave was emotionally challenging as I knew the sacrifices I had made to ensure a safe place for them. It served as a stark reminder of the depth of deception and its impact on innocent lives. I felt a heavy heart when I realized I had become emotionally attached to her daughters, viewing them as my own. They had become undeserving participants in this situation, and I couldn't accept that they would suffer the consequences of their mother's deceit. It was not an easy decision, but I believed it was the right one. Reflecting on the situation, I couldn't help but wonder if her affection for me had been genuine or just another facet of her lies. The uncertainty weighed on me, but I took solace in the fact that I had uncovered the truth, however little comfort it offered me at the time. The thought of starting a family with someone who had deceived me sent shivers down my spine. I was immensely grateful that the truth had come to light, saving me from potential consequences in the future. I made a resolute decision to exercise caution in relationships, giving priority to honesty and transparency. This experience left me with a whirlwind of emotions, but also provided a valuable lesson on safeguarding my heart and making informed choices. I also asked for permission to see her daughters and spend time with them in parks. To my surprise, she agreed. As time passed, I continued to work diligently and tried to spend quality time with the girls, picking them up once a week and enjoying our moments together. One day, while dining at a cafe, her older daughter mentioned that her mother had been looking unwell and acting strangely. At first, I didn't think much of her words, but when she revealed that her mom was probably sick because she gave herself a daily injection in her leg, I was taken aback. It hit me, and I understood what this meant. I reassured the girl, telling her that her mom would get better soon. I didn't know how to protect the girls from their mother, who was using illegal substances, so I consulted with my mother. She advised me to report the situation to Child Protection Services, which I did. However, I didn't want the children to be left without warmth and love in a shelter. So I informed Child Protection Services that I intended to adopt the girls, hoping for my mother's support. 6 months have passed since that day when my ex-girlfriend lost her parental rights. The girls spent about 2 months in a shelter, which deeply saddened me, but I managed to adopt the girls and I felt joy. My mother supported my decision and provided all possible help in raising my newfound daughters. I'm currently feeling really lost in my situation and need some guidance. My wife and I have been married for 17 years. We're both in our late 30 and early 40, and we've known each other for about 23 years, since high school. Here's what I know. 3 days ago, my wife came home from work, but she had to work on the 4th day. She seemed very upset and quickly packed an overnight bag before leaving. Our oldest daughter witnessed this. I tried talking to my wife, but she was too upset to speak and was in tears. She seemed almost panicked. She hasn't responded to any of our calls or texts. I contacted her parents, and they eventually told me she's safe with them and asked for patience and understanding. That's all I know. I also tried reaching out to her sister, brother, and a close work friend. Her brother had no information, and her work friend said she was at work in the morning but disappeared by lunch 3 days ago. It's been 3 days now with no contact from my wife, not even with the kids. Nobody is telling us anything, and I'm here with our 3 daughters trying to manage without her. The kids keep asking what's going on with Mom, but all I can say is that she's at her parents' house and we need to be patient and understanding. I have a strong urge to pack up the kids and drive to her parents' house without warning. It's only a 3-hour drive, and waiting. Here in uncertainty is agonizing. The kids think we had a big fight and are getting a divorce, but that's far from the truth. We never fight, and the kids know that. I don't know what's happening, and my emotions are all over the place as I try to handle everything without her. If something tragic happened, wouldn't her family be the first to tell me? Maybe some past trauma resurfaced, but if it were me, I'd turn to my wife for support. We're in the dark, and nothing makes sense. I'm at a loss for what to do, just sitting here with the girls feeling worried, scared, angry, and every other emotion in this situation. Can anyone offer a logical perspective and clarity on this? I'm stuck in a cycle of confusion due to my emotional state. Update: it turns out my wife had an affair. It was a long night, and I didn't sleep much. I don't expect to spend much time on the computer today, but I did read all the posts yesterday and into the night. And I'll eventually read the responses today. Here's what I know. My father-in-law didn't call me last night, so I eventually contacted the police, as many of you suggested. It turns out my wife had been having an affair for at least 2 years, probably longer. The other man had a heart attack on Tuesday and passed away that night. My mother-in-law and likely my sister-in-law knew about it and were covering for her. Still no contact from my wife, neither to me nor the girls. I'm trying to keep this information from them for now. I honestly don't know what to do from here. That's all I know, and it's almost unbearable. Please keep us in your thoughts and prayers. Responding to a commenter, my oldest daughter knows about the affair. She's very sharp, and we had a long talk last night. My mom knows and plans to stay with us this week. I took time off work, and my boss, who's also a close friend, knows about the situation, which is a relief. Any support I can get right now is valuable. Responding again, yes, your assumptions are correct. My wife had an affair with an older, divorced man, and the situation escalated quickly because of his wake and funeral. The wake occurred the same night I called the police, so you can imagine how complicated it became. Many details are still unfolding, and I appreciate the support from everyone. I might share more about this eventually. It feels like I could write a book at this point. We've been in touch with everyone, but it's still a challenging situation. I don't drink, and I'm trying to eat, although sleep is elusive. My priority is making sure my girls are okay. Reddit helps me relax in these difficult times. Providing more information, it's been just over a week since my D-Day Discovery Day. Since then, I've learned that my wife's affair had been going on for over 4 years, though I still don't have the exact timeline. It likely started emotionally and then became physical. I'm curious about how the pandemic and lockdowns played a role in this situation, but I may not get all the answers. Yesterday, my in-laws unexpectedly visited their grandkids. My wife has been staying at their house since this ordeal began, which is frustrating. They only spent about 15 minutes with the girls before asking to speak with me privately. The conversation was long and complicated, but in summary, my wife wants to come home, but is afraid of facing the consequences of her actions. Her parents tried to convince me to forgive her and rebuild the marriage, but I lied and said I wasn't sure about my future plans. I intend to get a divorce, but I worry that if I disclose this, my wife won't be honest with me, and I might never learn the truth. However, I do want her to sit down with me and explain everything, if that's possible. We've been together for over 17 years, including our time since high school, with 3 kids, countless memories, and shared experiences. I want her to look me in the eyes and tell me the whole story. I also want my children to see that I gave her a chance to explain herself and apologize, trying to handle things like mature adults. I'm striving to choose a path that sets the best example for my kids. I'm unsure if I'm doing it right, though. Legally, I can't prevent my wife from coming back to our home, as the lawyer has clarified, even though I don't want it right now. If she decides to return, I can't stop her. My daughters and I have established a nice routine, so I made a demand I thought would be difficult to meet. I told her she could come home when she sat down with me in person, looked me in the eyes, and openly discussed her affair from start to finish, answering all my questions honestly. She also needed to apologize to the girls in person and address their questions. I thought it was fair, considering they already know. Legally, she can return home without meeting these demands, but if she's afraid to face us, maybe we can use that to our advantage. Is this approach wrong? I'm not trying to be sneaky or dishonest, I just don't want to start living together yet if I can delay it, especially with a mandatory 90-day waiting period for divorce in our state. Her return is inevitable, and we both need to resume work eventually. Regardless of this situation, I prefer to prolong it so I can plan and improve my mental and emotional well-being. My wife has been texting our daughters, claiming she doesn't want a divorce and repeatedly apologizing to them. They've shared the texts with me and ask about me daily. It seems that the reality of her actions is hitting her hard, especially in the last few days. How should I handle this? Was my demand unreasonable? It sounds like my wife may come home sooner than I expected. Right now, I feel confident in my current path. I'm not shaken by this because I anticipated it happening eventually. My priority is making the best decision for my daughters and myself as we move forward. I want to thank everyone who has offered encouragement, advice, and support. In response to a question about reconciliation, I appreciate your outreach. During the first day or two after discovering the affair, I was unsure about getting a divorce, but my emotions clouded my judgment. As I began to recall the lies about her girls' weekend trips, late nights due to traffic, and work-related travel, I realized the extent of her deception. Every day, I uncover new lies that were meant to deceive me and our daughters so she could be with this other man. I apologize for the length of this response, but I needed to express these thoughts. The weekend was terrible, but my wife returned home yesterday following a build-up throughout the week. In the past, I would have greeted her with a hug and a kiss when she entered, but this time, there was an incredibly uncomfortable silence between us. She tried to hug me, but I turned away as if nothing had happened. After she settled in, I naturally asked her to tell me everything, and she again said she wasn't ready. We had the same result when we spoke on the phone earlier in the week. I insisted that her only condition for returning home was to explain her nearly 3-week absence to the family because of her love for us. However, she kept repeating that she wasn't ready for that. It was challenging not to lose my temper, but I took deep breaths to regain my composure. Unfortunately, I failed, and in frustration, I blurted out that she had been having a 4-year affair with a coworker, planned to leave me for him, and had cut ties with her entire family. And now she walked in without fulfilling the one condition I had asked for. I told her I wanted a divorce. This is when things took a bizarre turn. Her body language and facial expression showed that she had no idea how much I knew about her affair. She looked at me with wide eyes and then stood in the kitchen, staring at the floor, saying nothing. She remained stoic, and I didn't expect this reaction. I thought she might react emotionally, confess tearfully, blame the affair on me, or suggest a serious conversation to work things out, but her response was silence. We stood in the kitchen in absolute silence for what felt like 5 minutes, and it was the strangest moment I've ever experienced. She seemed at a loss for words, and so was I. I had prepared myself for all possible scenarios for this confrontation, except for this one. So I decided to outline everything I knew about her affair, even adding some of my assumptions about how she met her affair partner, her sister's involvement, and what happened during COVID. She continued to stare at the floor throughout my explanation. I grew angrier as I spoke because she remained silent. I did my best not to raise my voice or become obscene. Eventually, I composed myself, and there was another prolonged, awkward silence. My anger turned into sadness as I realized the gravity of the situation. I softly asked her what I had done to drive her away, if she had ever loved me, and if the affair was worth it. Still, she didn't respond. No tears, no apology, no shouting, and no explanation. She just stood there with her head down. This silence hurt even more than D-Day did. I kept staring at her, unsure of what to do, and then it got worse. Our daughters had overheard the entire encounter, and I feel incredibly foolish. I'd been so focused on putting their needs first over the past few weeks that I didn't consider their whereabouts when confronting my wife. Our oldest daughter stormed downstairs and expressed a lot of pent-up anger. My wife quickly ran upstairs and locked herself in the bedroom. That's where we are now. I heard my wife crying for most of the night until I fell asleep. Only our youngest daughter has attempted to talk to her, while the rest of us have avoided her. If I can muster the courage, I plan to suggest that my wife stays with her sister until we finalize the divorce. However, this is still her home, and it would be miserable for all of us to cohabit with her. I was wrong about my wife, and all of you were right. I was wrong about our years together, the memories and the significant moments in our life. I was convinced she would beg for forgiveness and confess to everything to absolve her guilt. This is the same woman who once drove back to a farmer's market to return $110 in change she had been given by mistake. But it seems we're not worth that effort to her. Maybe we never were. Now what? Today at home was incredibly uncomfortable. My daughters and I tried to continue as we have for the past 2 weeks, but it's not the same. I just want to fast forward through all of this, past the divorce, the awkward conversations, the inevitable arguments and fights, and the drama. For those who had to live with their unfaithful spouse, how did you manage, especially with kids? I know this is just the beginning, and I keep reading posts that promise it gets better, but I feel so far from that point. I constantly feel like screaming or crying. I'm trying my best to stay emotionally stable for my daughters, but I don't know if I can keep it up for 3 months. School will start soon, and this is my life now. Thank you all for your support and advice. I've been in a tough situation ever since my unfaithful wife returned home after I discovered her affair. I've been trying to put on a facade for my daughters, saying and thinking the right things. However, tonight, I have to be honest about my feelings. As many of you mention daily, the emotions come in waves, and tonight I was hit hard, causing me to lose my composure a bit. I've already filed for divorce, but my wife, who had the affair, hasn't hired a lawyer yet. I'm trying to be patient and handle this delicately, as I see the possibility of an uncontested divorce where we handle most things ourselves. But after tonight, I'm not sure anymore. During the week, we've been living together, but on Friday nights, my wife goes to her sister's house and returns on Sunday nights. This routine has involved mostly avoiding each other, with occasional interactions between myself and the girls. Unfortunately, my oldest daughter and my wife have had some heated arguments, so they're not speaking to each other lately. I've been following the advice I've received here and elsewhere. I've been working hard on controlling my emotions around my wife, even though it's challenging. I've kept my interactions with her brief and indifferent, though always polite and respectful. However, tonight was different. For the past couple of Fridays, my wife would come home from work, prepare for her weekend at her sister's, and leave before I got home from work. But not tonight. She was waiting for me in the kitchen when I arrived. I tried to walk past her, but she grabbed my hand lightly and questioned my treatment of her just because she's not ready to discuss her affair. This was the first time she even mentioned her cheating since everything came to light nearly a month ago. I tried to hold back. I promise I did. I attempted to keep my cool and walk away, but our daughters were not home at the time, and anger overwhelmed me. So I let out all my frustrations, pains, hurts, and rage. I told her everything, and I can't even estimate how long I went on. At times, my voice grew loud, and I got animated. I poured out all my emotions and the torment I've been experiencing. I could have written a 4,000-word post with all the things I said. Once I started, I couldn't stop. I cried and got emotional, and I was so angry with myself afterward. I had been doing well, and I let her get to me. I knew it would happen, and it did. I'm disappointed in myself. I've been holding in my feelings for a while, and the weight room can only do so much. For the first time, my wife also broke down and got emotional, sobbing uncontrollably. Surprisingly, I found some satisfaction in seeing her hurt like I have been. She mumbled apologies repeatedly during my outburst and couldn't say anything else as I left the kitchen, asking her to leave me alone. The girls came home about half an hour later and sensed that something had happened, but I wasn't ready to discuss it. I don't think they need to know. The younger ones have been doing better, and I don't want to hinder their progress. Telling my oldest would only add to her anger, which I want to avoid. I hate this situation so much. I should have kept my composure. I should have ignored my wife and walked past her. Looking back, it seems like she wanted to start a conversation about her affair, but didn't know how. And it didn't go far because of my explosion. I've actually started worrying about her. I know some of you will criticize me for this, but I don't want any harm to come to her. She's been isolated and alone with her thoughts, with nearly everyone turning their back on her. You can say she deserves it, and that's true, but she's still a human being and the mother of my children. This is a setback for me, and I'm really disappointed in myself. I apologize for the long rant. I called my brother and vented to him too. I'll try to start over on Monday. I'm only human. Venting on her felt good, but now I'm feeling regret. Should I text my wife or should I just leave it be? My wife hasn't left me alone all week. She's been overly nice, continuously apologizing for her affair, crying and trying to engage me, even knocking on my door at night to talk. I've ignored her at times, but spoken when I felt like it. However, I finally snapped at her on Wednesday night, telling her to leave me alone. Then something happened last night. Just over a month since my soon-to-be ex-wife returned home after her affair was revealed, things have gotten more uncomfortable as we cohabit. She came into my room last night after our daughters had gone to bed, asking to talk privately, which was different from how she'd been approaching me all week. I resisted at first, but eventually we went to the garage and sat in my car to avoid arguing in front of the kids. I apologize for the length of this, but she told me everything. According to her, we talked for almost 3 hours. I'm not sure how much I should share. I stayed up all night listening to her cry for hours. I couldn't sleep and went through a cycle of crying, anger, resisting the urge to confront her, and repeating. Forgive me if I take a day or so to respond to anyone, but I needed to get this off my chest and try to get some sleep. Having my wife constantly apologize and beg for another chance all evening hasn't helped. Tonight, I had to leave for a few hours just to get away from her because being around her is incredibly painful. On a different note, she was introduced to her affair partner by her sister about 5 years ago with no romantic intentions initially. He was a higher-up at a company she wanted to work for and currently works at, which is how he helped her get the job. Her desire to change jobs was unrelated to her affair, but once she did, she had extra motivation. After she got the job, her affair partner began flirting with her. It started with texting, then progressed to exchanging pictures, more texting, and eventually became physical just before COVID hit. She confessed to her sister and initially wanted to come clean to me but decided to bury it and keep quiet. She claimed to have gone no contact with her affair partner soon after, but as lockdowns and restrictions eased, he reached out to her and she resumed talking to him. When businesses reopened, the physical side of the affair also resumed. She admitted to ending the affair a couple of times out of guilt but kept going back to him, so it never really ended. She had detailed notes about her affair timeline, which she read to me, answering questions along the way. She lied about weekend trips with the girls, work-related travel, traffic jams, issues with her parents, shopping trips, and more. There were so many lies that I believed every word, never questioning anything. These lies were a cover for her affair. Hearing all of this made me feel even worse, as many of you had predicted. However, her affection for me didn't decrease during the affair. She didn't become distant, as is often the case. Intimacy did change, but not enough to raise red flags. She confessed to falling in love with her affair partner and wanting a life with him. He was older, divorced, single, and promised her expensive gifts, vacations, and other luxuries. She started daydreaming about escaping her family responsibilities, and the thrill of being with him was too tempting to resist. She spoke candidly with a lot of emotion and appeared honest. Midway through her confession, I lost my composure and started crying. It was painful to hear everything. As expected, when she finished, she told me how much she loved me, always had, and was willing to do anything to save our marriage. Many of you had predicted this, but it felt disingenuous to me, as if rehearsed. I've been with her for over half my life, and I can tell when she's not being genuine. Maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't matter. I managed to compose myself better than last week, though I still got angry and said some unkind things, including pointing out that her affair partner was seeing multiple women, and she was just one of many to him. This seemed to upset her greatly. I had thought of a million things to say when she finally confessed, all the one-liners and responses I might throw at her, but in that emotional moment I couldn't think of most of them. However, I knew I would ask one thing. If she had to choose between her affair partner and me, who would she pick? She hesitated and then mumbled, "That's not fair." I pressed her, and eventually she said she would choose me. Of course, I told her that her hesitation was the reason I was divorcing her, as it showed she was lying again. She started sobbing, and that was the last thing she said. We sat in the car for a while with her continuing to cry, but I was tired. I eventually told her that we're divorcing and that, for the sake of our daughters, we owe it to them to co-parent civilly and be present in their lives. I also added that, given all the pain she put me through, I hope she could handle the divorce amicably, which would demonstrate her love for me. The last thing I said, borrowed from something online, was that I kissed her on the forehead and told her I would have loved her forever. Then I got out of the car and went to bed. That's where things stand for now. Her chance to contest the divorce has passed, but I haven't spoken to my lawyer yet. I find myself crying again and cycling through depression and anger phases. Hearing everything last night was incredibly difficult, and I could have done without it. Now that I know she could have lied or made it all up, who knows? But it aligned with everything I had pieced together in the past month. So that's the current situation. This feels never-ending. I have a few good days, start feeling strong, and then something else happens. It feels like it's been months, yet only days at the same time. I'm going to try to sleep. Imagine the love of your life, the only person you've ever loved or kissed, telling you she cheated for over 4 years simply because she was bored. There were no issues in our relationship, she was just bored. I don't know if that makes it worse or better. Thanks for reading and for your support along the way. It's been a rough couple of nights. Very tough. I promise to make an effort to respond tomorrow after I get some sleep.
Story 2.
My wife was advised to cheat and try a new size. She paid a devastating price for her betrayal. "Honey," I inquired, "are you asleep?" Amy murmured something I couldn't make out. "Can I ask you something? How come after almost 25 years together you've suddenly gotten better in bed?" Barely awake, Amy grumbled, "I've always done it for you." I observed Amy. She seemed relaxed, curled up in a fetal position, hugging her extra pillow with her back facing me. "Yeah, you have, but you never seem to enjoy it. What's with the sudden change?" Amy turned over, still clutching the pillow tightly. She flashed me a smile with her beautiful blue eyes and said playfully, "Well, I didn't hear any complaints from you." I smiled back at Amy, my closest friend and the woman I've admired since we met at a backyard party over 20 years ago. "I'm not complaining now. I'm just curious why, after letting me do it in your mouth twice before we got married and then never allowing it again, You've let it happen twice more in 1 week after 25 years. Amy was fully awake now and asked, "What's bothering you, Chris?" "I'm just asking a simple question, Amy. For 25 years, you've done this without much enthusiasm. It's always felt like a chore." Amy sat up in bed as I continued, "And tonight you did something completely different. I'm just wondering where this sudden enthusiasm is coming from." Amy got out of bed and stood with her hands on her hips, glaring at me. "If you prefer, we can go back to the old way." Amy was angry, and I sensed she was about to get even angrier. "No, I'm really enjoying your improved skills," I said. Then I wanted to get a dig in, so I added, "You're almost as good as some of my old college girlfriends." Amy's face turned red with anger, but before she could respond, I continued, "But you still haven't explained why your skills have gotten better. Did you read something? Talk to your friends? Or maybe you've had some practice?" "What are you accusing me of?" Amy was furious. I stayed calm and explained, "I'm not accusing you of anything. I just want to understand. You've disliked giving me BJs throughout our relationship, and suddenly it's become enjoyable. I'm curious why." Amy grabbed her pillow and headed for the door. As she left the bedroom, she yelled angrily, "You don't need to think about it anymore because I won't do it again." Amy was halfway down the hall, heading to our guest room, when I called out from the bedroom, "I guess I'll find out the truth tomorrow." "What do you mean by that?" she shot back. "I mean," I said slowly, "the private investigator I hired almost 6 weeks ago has finished his report. I'm meeting him in the morning. I have a feeling that your newfound skills will be a big part of that report." As I closed and locked the bedroom door, I saw Amy's jaw drop. Her knocking, crying, and pleading continued for over an hour while I lay in our king-size bed, crying into my pillow. Amy and I usually wake up early. Since I didn't want to talk to her, I set my alarm for 3 in the morning. I quickly got dressed in gym clothes and left the house within 5 minutes. My workout that morning lasted 2 hours and left me feeling exhausted. After showering, I changed into clothes that I had packed in my car the day before. I arrived at my favorite breakfast diner just before 6. It was only 2 blocks from my office. After ordering coffee, I turned on my phone and was immediately bombarded with texts and voicemails from my cheating wife. I ignored them and sent a text to my boss, asking if we could meet at Lucy's before work. About 30 minutes later, I received a response from Stacy saying, "See you at 7:30. Stacy walked into Lucy's, glanced around, and then sat down on the bench across from me when she spotted me. She ordered a coffee and a bagel to go before turning her attention to me. After taking a quick look at me, Stacy exclaimed, "You look terrible." "Yeah, I feel even worse," I replied. "Is there something going on at work?" she asked. I shook my head and I could see Stacy relax a bit as she finished her question. "No, it's personal. I think Amy might be cheating on me. She practically admitted it last night. I've hired a private investigator and I'm meeting him this morning to get the details. I just wanted to let you know that I might be in and out of the office as I deal with this situation." Stacy sat quietly for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Finally, she asked, "How can I support you?" "Unless you have a magic solution, I'm not sure there's much you can do. I'll be taking the next couple of days off, but staying in touch with the office. I'll avoid Amy for now. I have a meeting with the private investigator today and a lawyer tomorrow," I explained with a shrug. "Don't you think you're getting ahead of yourself? Unless there's something you're not telling me, you haven't found any proof yet. I purposely started a fight about closeness last night." Amy got angry right away and stormed out of the bedroom. I told her she didn't have to answer my questions. My private investigator would handle it in the morning. If you had seen the look on Amy's face, you'd be absolutely certain about what the report will say. "You should talk to her, Chris." "I know I will, but not right now." "Where are you going to stay?" Stacy inquired. "I'll book a room somewhere." Stacy rummaged through her oversized purse and eventually pulled out a set of keys. Handing me one of the keys, she said, "Here's a key to our cottage. You've stayed there before. It's only a 35-minute drive away. We won't be using it until the end of the month." As she gave me the key, she offered some advice. "Can I give you some advice?" "Of course. If things go the way you expect, your life will get worse before it gets better. It'll be tough for a while. Then one day you'll wake up and you won't feel completely terrible. You'll just feel miserable. That'll be the beginning of your recovery." "It sounds like you're speaking from experience." "My ex-husband divorced me 12 years ago. It was rough." We sipped our coffee and Stacy continued, "I don't talk about it much, mostly because I'm embarrassed. I messed up my life, my kid's life, and Tom's life. His family hates me. My son's friends hit on me because they know everything." I jumped in, "You don't need to share all this with me, Stacy." "I know. Even after 2 years of therapy sessions every week, I still have more questions about my stupid actions than answers." We both chuckled sadly. Stacy went on. Tom discovered my cheating in the worst way possible. He tested positive for an STD. I gave my husband and closest friend a disease. I was speechless, so she continued. It gets worse if that's even possible. I panicked and blamed Tom, saying he gave me the disease. We both knew, well, everyone knew, I was the one who cheated. Why did you do it? Stacy stared at the table as she confessed. Because I could. Because I wanted to feel attractive again. Because I wanted a secret. Because I enjoyed forbidden, anonymous, rough closeness, she elaborated. I travel for work just like you do. Once or twice a year, I'd meet someone interesting and invite them to my room. Looking back, it seems so foolish. We sat in silence until Stacy asked, Have you ever been unfaithful? No. Honestly, I've never felt tempted. Don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect. I enjoy flirting and knowing that women find me attractive, but I've never thought about betraying Amy. Why do you think that is? It's just who I am. Closeness with Amy has been pretty ordinary. She's not into trying new things. But even a regular night with Amy is always better than the wildest one-night stand from college. What made you suspicious? Amy and I have always had an active bed life. Even after 25 years, we're close 2 or 3 times a week. Lately, Amy's been a bit more forward, a bit more daring, a bit more. I shrugged again. After a couple of months with a growing knot in my stomach, I hired a private investigator. I'll find out the results soon. I bet Amy will call the office looking for you. What should we tell her? Let her know I'm taking some time off and won't be back until next week. Stacy picked up our bill along with her bagel. She gave me a tight hug and said, Stay strong. If you need anything, just let me know. Our daughters, Julie and Kate, were both in their 3rd year at the University of Connecticut. Julie was born 9 months before Kate and skipped 4th grade, so they graduated high school together. Julie was studying electrical engineering like me, while Kate was majoring in chemistry with plans for a medical career. I managed to get hold of Kate earlier, asking her and Julie to meet me later in the day without contacting their mom until we talked. Dad, what's going on? Mom's been calling like crazy and she must know we're avoiding her. I hugged Julie and kissed Kate's cheek, leading them to a quiet spot in Yukon Student Union. You don't look so good, Dad, Julie remarked. I chuckled, realizing those were the same words my boss said earlier. Yeah, I've heard that before. Then it was Kate's turn. Just spill it, Dad. We're concerned. What's happening? I'd rehearsed what to say, but when the moment came, I couldn't find the words. Instead, the tears I'd been holding back since meeting with the private investigator burst out. Both girls leaped out of their seats and hugged me tightly, providing comfort until I could compose myself. I hate to break this to you, but I'm going to file for divorce from Mom. She's been having a long-term affair with a coworker, I told them. Julie began, But Dad, are you? Her words trailed off. Yes, sweetheart, I'm sure. I have evidence, I assured her. Julie looked stunned and Kate started to cry. Then Julie spoke up again. Dad, I need to see the proof. I know you wouldn't lie, but I need to see it. Earlier, I had picked out one of the less offensive photos from the investigator's report. I showed them a picture of their mom and Mike Brooks leaving a house their real estate firm was selling. They were kissing on the front porch. As they looked at the picture together, Julie began, Dad. Sweetheart, I interrupted. I have photos, videos, texts, and emails. I won't show you any of it, but I've seen them. They're terrible. Both girls were now in tears. Are you really going to divorce Mom? Kate asked through her sobs. At this point, I don't see any other choice. I know I haven't been a perfect husband or father, I admitted, waving off their objections. I continued, but I've always tried to do right by you. Sometimes I messed up, but never on purpose. I've given my all to this family. I don't have anything left to give, and it seems like Mom wants more. The girls listened intently as I spoke. I still love your mom, though not as much as I did 6 weeks ago when I first got suspicious. But I don't like her much anymore. I can't trust her, and I can't imagine ever trusting her again. And the worst part is, she's lost respect for me. She's been belittling and humiliating me in the worst ways, and she doesn't care. There was a brief silence, broken by Julie's ringing phone. We saw Mom on the screen. Don't answer that, I told Julie. Before I could speak further, Julie grabbed her phone and answered angrily, Sorry, Mom, but we're too busy consoling Dad who's heartbroken. If you need someone to talk to, call up your affair partner. Amy's hysterical shouts were audible as Julie ended the call. When the phone rang again immediately, Julie turned it off, and Katie did the same. I'm sorry you're stuck in the middle of this mess. Your mom. Well, she's still your mom. She loves you, and you know it. Things might be tense between you and Mom for a while, but you still need to treat her with respect. As the girls started to object, I raised my hand. I'm not asking you to forgive her for what she's done or the damage she's caused, but we all have to find a way to move forward. I looked at both of them and added, "She's your mom, flaws and all, just like you have to accept me." After leaving the Yukon campus, I stopped at a burger joint for some food and a much-needed craft beer, then headed over to my parents' house. I rarely visited unannounced, so as I sat in their driveway gathering my thoughts, I saw my parents' front door open. Dad stepped onto the front stoop, followed by Mom. They watched me from afar as I sat in my car gathering my courage. I got out of the car and began walking toward them. Dad and I met halfway and he pulled me into a tight bear hug. All the strength I tried to gather vanished, and I cried into Dad's shoulder without shame. "Your mom and I don't know what's happening, but the frantic calls from Amy let us know something's wrong. We were expecting you to show up tonight." After I explained Amy's affair with her coworker to my parents, Mom asked, "Do you think counseling could help you deal with this?" Mom's always hopeful. And she sees Amy almost like her own daughter. Tears welled up in her eyes as I shook my head and replied, "I don't want to see a therapist. I've treated Amy and the girls like royalty. I didn't do anything wrong and don't deserve how cruelly Amy's treated me."
"But you've had so many good years together."
With a sigh, I admitted, "You're right, Mom. We've had a great life until Amy and Amy alone wrecked it. This isn't a one-time mistake. It's a full-blown affair between two selfish married people who only care about themselves." Mom seemed to be searching for another solution. I think I shocked her when I said, "Why would you want me to be miserable living with a lying, cheating person? I'm not perfect, but don't I deserve better than being with someone unfaithful?" "Please, Chris," Mom pleaded. "Don't use those words to describe Amy, at least not in front of me. I'm just trying to make a point, Mom. Amy's taken everything I have to offer, but it's not enough. She's hurt and disrespected me. Do I not deserve better?" Dad interrupted, saying, "Cut your mom some slack. We're still trying to process this shock. You know we'll support whatever decision you make." After a pause, Dad added, "And understand, if possible, we'd like to maintain a relationship with Amy and her family. It might not be as strong as before, but I hope Amy's actions haven't ruined that possibility." As Dad finished, Mom's phone rang. She checked the screen and said, "It's Amy." After a moment's hesitation, Mom looked me in the eye and stated, "I won't ignore Amy's calls, and I won't deceive her. I'll never ask you to do that." Dad and I remained quiet as Mom picked up the phone. "Hello, Amy. He got here about 10 minutes ago and told us about your actions. I think he'll be staying here tonight. Amy, I'm sorry. Chris, Amy's coming over." "Don't worry about it, Mom. I'm going to head out. I'll give you a call tomorrow." Mom asked, "Where are you going?" "Stacy has a cottage at Cooper Lake. She's letting me stay there for now." "You'll have to talk to her eventually," Dad pointed out. "I will, but I'll do it when I'm ready, not when she wants. I'm just not prepared yet." "What should we say to Amy when she shows up?" Mom inquired. "I'd call her and let her know it's pointless to come over. Tell her I'm not ready to talk. I trust you won't lie, but I hope you won't tell her where I'm staying." Mom started crying. I walked over and hugged her tightly. Dad joined in, and the Harrington family comforted each other. My parents silently provided all the emotional support I needed. After officially initiating the divorce process with a visit to a highly recommended divorce lawyer, I went to my in-laws' house. Amy's car wasn't there, so I parked and approached the front door. "It's really bad, isn't it?" Those were Frank Wilson's first words as he opened the front door. "It's about as bad as it gets." Frank stood in the doorway, blocking my way, and asked, "Who cheated?" "She did." "Do you have proof?" Frank inquired. I nodded, and Frank exclaimed, "Dang!" Then turned and headed to the kitchen, leaving the door ajar. Eileen, Amy's mom, was nervously sitting at the kitchen table. She looked up as I entered and gestured toward the coffee maker, saying, "Fresh coffee's there." As I silently poured myself a cup, Frank retrieved a bottle of Jack from a cabinet. We both sat down, and Frank poured a generous amount of bourbon into his coffee, sliding the bottle my way. As I added some liquid courage to my cup, Frank asked, "Can I see the evidence?" Looking down at the table, I replied, "I can show you the written report, but I won't share the photos or videos." When he cursed again and met his eyes, I continued, "But Frank, I'm begging you, please don't ask to see the photos. No father should ever have to see his daughter in those situations." It was painful to witness, but Frank visibly deflated in front of Eileen and me. Eileen interjected, "Is there any chance your marriage can be saved?" "I met with a lawyer this morning. He'll have the paperwork ready by early next week, and we'll file it with the court on Wednesday. The lawyer will contact Amy using her cell number. She can choose to pick up the paperwork at his office, or we can serve her officially." "I can't believe you're giving up on your marriage so easily," Eileen burst out angrily. "I'm not giving up, Eileen. Amy made that decision when she chose to cheat on me." "But it happened just once," Eileen yelled. I took 3 deep breaths. to calm down and briefly regretted adding bourbon into my coffee. It wasn't just once. Only Amy and her affair partner know how many times they've met, but it's been going on for months. We sat in silence for a moment before I continued. This is your second marriage, just like mine. Both of your first marriages ended because of infidelity. Frank quickly interjected. But those marriages were new. You've been married for 25 years. Doesn't that count for something? Love, trust, and respect, Frank. You've said those words to me countless times. A marriage needs all three. I don't trust Amy, and she doesn't respect me. Eileen asked, will you treat Amy fairly in the divorce? I have to follow the divorce laws, but I won't make it harder on Amy or our family than necessary. What about the girls? Frank inquired. I talked to them yesterday on campus. They know about the divorce and the reason. They're upset with Amy, like everyone else. It might take time, but they'll understand. I promise. I hope you don't mind me asking. Feel free to ask anything. I'm divorcing Amy, not you and Frank. I hope we can still have a friendship. Tears streamed down Eileen's face as she pleaded, please talk to Amy. I will, I promise, but not today, and probably not for a few days. But I will talk to her. Mary Beth Johnston has been friends with Amy for a long time. They could have been closer, but I've always been cautious of Mary Beth and her husband Phil since we first met. Mary Beth and Phil have an open marriage. While they didn't actively recruit others into their lifestyle, they weren't secretive about it either. They often shared stories about their activities over the years. Amy's interest in swapping parties and casual relationships made me uncomfortable, but I trusted my wife completely. I can't believe how you're treating Amy. Yes, she messed up big time, but she's sorry. You need to move on and stop acting foolish. If you want to mess around, go ahead, but don't do anything reckless. That's how Mary Beth started the conversation when she sat down across from me at Dunkin' Donuts. I'm not going to do anything reckless, I promise. Mary Beth looked skeptical and said, Amy thinks you're planning to get a divorce. I am getting a divorce. Papers will be filed Wednesday. It's not foolish, it's what people do when they want to leave a cheating spouse. Before Mary Beth could say more, I asked, you've known me almost as long as Amy has. I've known about your open marriage the whole time. Have I ever given any indication I'd be okay with infidelity? Mary Beth was shocked and muttered, this is a nightmare. It's a nightmare for Amy, me, our kids, and everyone else, Mary Beth. It's about to become your nightmare too. Angry again, Mary Beth snapped, of course it's a nightmare for Phil and me. We've been friends for years. I smirked at Mary Beth, knowing my warning went right over her head. What? She asked, followed by an agitated, what? I've had a private investigator looking into Amy's suspicious behavior, I revealed. Staying assertive, Mary Beth retorted, yeah? So what? He caught her cheating. The PI's report includes all the text messages between you and Amy for the past 6 months, I continued. Mary Beth tried to process this when I dropped the bomb. I know Mike was part of your swapping group before you got married. You even told Amy he is a Big Johnson. When you found out he was working with Amy, you pushed her to go for it. Amy's kept you updated on their dates. I know every detail, you witch. Before Mary Beth could speak, I cut in. Every action has consequences. Amy's cheating leads to divorce. Your consequences won't be as severe, but I'll make sure to mess with your lives. How will you do that? She demanded. With a smile, I answered, glad you asked. I pulled out a folded paper from my back pocket, unfolded it, and I said, I'm going to send this email out to a few people that you and Phil know. Subject, Mary Beth and Phil Johnston ruined my marriage, friends. I'm Chris Harrington. I've been married to Amy for almost 25 years. Except for the last few months, our marriage seemed perfect, at least to me. Due to the direct impact of Mary Beth and Phil Johnston's open marriage, my wife has cheated on me, and I am filing for divorce. After 25 years of marriage went down the drain, I'm sending this email as a cautionary tale to prevent other marriages from being ruined by Mary Beth and Phil's casual attitude toward faithfulness. My wife had an affair with a swapping friend of Phil and Mary Beth. Mary Beth encouraged the affair, telling my wife Amy she'd never forget it. Mary Beth was right. My wife will never forget her affair, as it's destroyed our marriage and family. Whether you're connected to the Johnston personally, professionally, or socially, be aware of their complete disregard for marriage vows and their readiness to wreck your own marriage. Maybe if I'd been more careful in choosing our friends, Amy and I wouldn't be headed for divorce. Best regards, Chris Harrington. Mary Beth threatened, we'll sue you if you send this to anyone. I chuckled and replied, my lawyer checked out the email and the PI report's text messages. He said everything in the email is true. Who are you sending it to? I've got emails for all the teachers and administrators in your school district, plus 38 folks at Phil's company. There are over 300 people there, but the email will probably spread. Members of your country club and church will see it too, along with some groups you and Phil are involved in." Mary Beth sat there stunned. I handed her a copy saying, "You can show Phil exactly what's going out. Have a great life, you awful person." As part of the PI report, I learned Lucy Brooks, married to that jerk Michael Brooks, took her kids to Willowbrook Park every Saturday. At the park, she and her kids hung out with a regular group of moms and kids. "Lucy," I greeted. "Chris, haven't seen you since the company holiday party. What brings you here?" Just wanted to catch up, Lucy." 7 moms were eyeing us. I said, "This isn't a random run-in. Can we chat alone for a bit?" Lucy agreed enthusiastically, saying, "Sure, absolutely," but soon she realized I wasn't sharing her cheerful mood. She questioned, "Chris, is everything?" Her voice trailed off as understanding dawned on her face. Lucy went visibly pale. Her friends, noticing her change in demeanor, looked either concerned for Lucy or upset that I had caused her distress. "Are you okay?" asked the plump blonde beside her. Lucy didn't respond right away, only snapping out of her trance when another mom demanded, "What's happening?" "I'm okay, really." "Then to me, I think we should talk privately." "That would be best." A slim, attractive redhead stood up, shooting angry looks between Lucy and me. "Chris, this is my protective cousin, Aggie. Aggie, meet Chris Harrington. He's married to someone who works with Mike. I think he wants to chat about the women's intuition stuff you believe I've been imagining, ladies." "Aggie, how about Lucy and I head to the picnic table under the tree?" I gestured to a spot nearby. "We can have some privacy there, but still be close by." Lucy stared at the ground for a moment, tears silently streaming down her face as she rose to her feet. Aggie rushed to her side, embracing her tightly as they both cried. When they pulled apart, Aggie's anger softened to sadness as she saw my own tears. I told Aggie, "I'm not just delivering bad news. I'm caught in the middle of this mess with your cousin." Walking alongside Lucy, she halted after a few steps, turned to Aggie and said, Can you take the kids home with you?" Replied, "Sure thing, Lucy. And if necessary, can they stay over for the weekend?" Gave a sad smile and nodded. Seated across from each other at the picnic table, I inquired, "How long have you been aware of this?" Lucy sighed. "Unfortunately, this isn't new territory for me. We tied the knot a bit later than most, and soon after we started a family. After our second child, Mike got a vasectomy. His first affair cropped up within 6 months. The second followed a year after our first confrontation. Now this is the third strike. I've had a hunch something was off for about a month. I'm wrestling with the decision to divorce Amy. I know it's inevitable, but I keep doubting myself. Can you shed some light on why you stayed with Mike after his first 2 affairs?" "It was mostly for the kids. Well, entirely for them, really. I grew up with divorced parents, a bitter mom, and a dad I saw once a week. I didn't want that for my own kids. I still don't, but it seems like that's where we're headed. Fortunately, I have a strong support network nearby, so I'll have plenty of help." I had a feeling Lucy would answer that way, so I nodded in agreement. "Can you tell me why Mike cheats?" I inquired. Lucy nodded in response. "He enjoys the excitement of corrupting good girls." I was pretty innocent about closeness. Mike was my lover and teacher. He set rules and rewarded me when I followed them. I liked being his naughty partner, but only in a loving, faithful marriage. "Do you have any evidence?" Lucy asked. Handing her a thick envelope, I replied, "I suggest giving this to your lawyer and avoiding looking at it. Most of Mike and Amy's conversations are hurtful. There's nothing there except pain." "What made you suspicious of Amy?" Lucy inquired. I chuckled, saying, "It seems Mike had similar expectations for Amy. Like a loyal pup, she learned the tricks and shared them with me. I've decided to stay at Aggie's place for the weekend while we've been talking. I know it's a big ask, but could you drive me home so I can pack for a few days?" Before I could respond, Lucy warned, "Mike will be there. I'm not worried about your lousy husband. I'm happy to take you home," I assured her. After sorting out everything with Aggie, Lucy came back to me, and we headed to my car. The drive to her house was pretty quiet. When we reached her street, she pointed to an SUV parked on the side and told me to stop there. Following her instructions, I parked next to the truck and watched as Lucy signaled to the driver. Then she gestured ahead and told me her house was the white colonial 5 houses down on the left. As I pulled into the driveway, the SUV followed behind me. Mike was out in the front yard, mowing the lawn. Things unfolded quickly. Mike waved to Lucy as she got out of my car. 2 women swiftly exited the SUV, flanking Lucy and guiding her to the front door. A big man trailed behind the women, standing guard by the entrance after they went inside. Meanwhile, an older man emerged from the SUV just as I stepped out of my car. He approached me with a handshake and introduced himself. "I'm Larry Green. Lucy is my daughter." I leaned against the front of my car, hands on the hood, watching as Mike approached. Chris Harrington. What's Lucy doing with you?" Mike looked shaken, his face pale. "I ran into her at the park this morning. I had some important stuff to share with her from my private investigator." Before Mike could say anything, Larry chimed in. "You scum, Mike. You've just lost the only good part of your sorry life." "This is all garbage," Mike yelled, then rushed toward the front door, shouting, "Stay out of my way. Georgie!" I figured Georgie was the big guy sitting on the steps. He didn't budge until Mike tried to pass. Then he swiftly got up, pushed Mike back, and sent him tumbling to the ground. Larry gave me a questioning look. "It looked like Mike slipped," I said. Larry nodded. "Yep, sure. Did." Mike struggled to get up, eventually turning to me. He shouted, "It's all your wife's fault. She came after me. Everyone knows she's just a public property."
I won't argue with you there, Mike.
"Amy's a witch, but she's not my problem anymore," I chuckled sadly, trying to hide my emotions. Just then, Larry put his hand on my shoulder, giving me a boost. "You and Mike are a match made in hell. You both know each other's game. How do you think that'll play out?" "I don't want anything to do with her," Mike spat. "Well, lucky for her then. She's got enough problems without dealing with a jerk like you," I retorted. I shook hands with Larry and said, "This guy isn't worth my time. I'm out. Take care of Lucy. She's a great woman." It had been 2 weeks. Amy got served, and her lawyer was talking with mine. Life felt like a bleak routine. During lunch, I checked my voicemail and heard from my mother-in-law. "Hey, Chris, it's Eileen. Just reminding you about the promise you made to talk with Amy. It'd mean a lot if you could give her a call. Thanks. Love you." Grinding my teeth, I reluctantly dialed my home number, knowing Amy was at work. I left this message. "Amy, it's Chris. I'm staying at Stacy's family lake house. If you're up for it, swing by on Saturday for lunch. I'll make sandwiches. We can chat. Meet me at the backyard picnic table at noon. Thanks for coming out here, Chris." "This lunch setup looks great. Thanks," Amy said, sitting across from me at the picnic table by the lake. Even without her usual radiance, Amy still looked good after all these years. "It's nice to see you, Amy." "Appreciate you making the drive," I replied. Amy glanced around and said, "It's so serene here." I agree. Initially, I was considering moving into a downtown condo near the office, but lately, I've been eyeing lakefront properties around here, I shared. My unintended comment hit Amy hard, and I could see the devastation in her eyes right away. "Amy, I started, but she cut me off with a wave of her hand. Tears welled up as she said, "No need to apologize. I'm just being overly sensitive." Looking away from the table, Amy continued, "I'm so scared." Her words hung heavy in the air as she collected herself. "I've been scared before, many times. Work challenges, raising our wonderful daughters, they've all terrified me, but I always had you by my side. We were a team, and I knew together we could tackle anything," she reflected, smiling softly. I agreed. "We did a good job, didn't we?" We shared a peaceful moment, eating our lunch. I topped off Amy's wine glass and poured myself another beer. "I've started seeing a therapist," Amy sighed. "Well, shrink isn't fair. Dr. Popper has been great, helping me navigate the end of our marriage and find my way forward solo." "I'm glad to hear that, Amy. I hope it helps you find the closure you need," I replied. "I've told myself over and over not to ask you about reconciliation. Everyone says it's not possible, but I have to ask. Is there any chance you can forgive me and we can try again?" Amy's voice trembled with hope. I took a deep breath and downed a swig of beer. "That's 2 separate questions, Amy. I've been wrestling with the forgiveness part since we agreed to meet today. I've made a commitment to myself to try," I admitted. After some thought, I continued, "It's going to be a process, and I'm not sure if it's achievable, but I'm going to give it a shot. But let me be clear, if I do forgive you, it's not primarily for your sake, but for the girls, our family, and myself." Finishing off the rest of my beer, I added, "We'll still be in each other's lives enough that I don't want to carry around any bitterness. But Amy, the divorce will proceed, and we won't be getting back together." Amy cried and nodded in understanding. She asked, "Can I reach out if I need support, if I need someone to talk to?" Though I wanted to shout, I kept calm, grabbed another beer from the cooler and filled my glass. Once I composed myself, I proposed, "How about a compromise? Until the divorce is final, let's handle things through our lawyers. Afterward, I'll be open to your calls, except for emergencies." 7 months later, our divorce was finalized. It was my first night in my new lakeside home, and I sat on the back deck, contemplating whether to crack open a couple of high-alcohol craft beers from the cooler or dive straight into the bourbon on the table before me when my phone buzzed. Seeing Amy's name, I answered with a smile. "Hey, Amy. I'm really down and could use someone to talk to," she said with sadness in her voice. 5 years later, things were looking up. One morning I noticed the sky seemed bluer and the birds sounded cheerier. Life was improving. Stacy was proven right. She moved to our company's main office in Dallas, where she's now the executive VP of sales and marketing. Despite staying single, she's seen her kids grow up. After a glass or two of wine, she admits to enjoying the occasional thrill of a one-night stand. Julie graduated college with top honors and now works as an engineer for a defense contractor on the West Coast. She's in a somewhat serious relationship and pursuing her master's degree part-time. Julie maintains a strong bond with both Amy and me, chatting with us weekly. We affectionately call Kate the Mole because of her lack of a social life. After college, she worked for a pharmaceutical company for a couple of years before getting into Johns Hopkins Medical School. Engaged to another med student, they're both devoted to their studies. While I reach out to Kate weekly, she seldom initiates contact, preferring to focus on her studies. My parents are surprisingly healthy for their age. They still reside in Hartford, Connecticut, but escaped the harsh winters by spending time in a small condo in Clearwater, Florida. While Mom enjoys monthly lunches with Amy, Dad rarely joins. Frank and Eileen are also doing fine despite minor health concerns. They alternate hosting weekly dinners with my parents, maintaining close ties. Mary Beth and Phil relocated to the Midwest a year after our divorce, with Mike following 6 months later. Good riddance to them all. Lucy and her kids are thriving. Though it took her a while to start dating again, she's been quite popular among eligible suitors. Setting high standards, she eventually found Mr. Right, and they recently celebrated their first anniversary. Judging by their constant smiles, they still feel like newlyweds. Amy appears to be content as well. While her relationship with Kate remains strained, her other connections have healed. She's been seeing a man for 6 months, and the last time we spoke, she mentioned he might be the one. I'm hopeful for her happiness. As for me, things are going smoothly. I stepped into Stacy's role as division president after she moved to Dallas. My responsibilities are manageable and on track. 2 years post-divorce, I bumped into an old acquaintance, Lucy's cousin Aggie. We met at a mutual friend's daughter's graduation party and chatted a bit. Later, as the older crowd left, Aggie pulled me aside and said, during lunchtime, like most days, Aggie showed up at my office and locked the door behind her. I quickly wrapped up a call and joined her on the couch. As a man in his early 50s, my prowess isn't what it used to be. While I may have been more energetic in the past, now I can only offer a few drops. Sadly, the days of intense passion are behind me. Fortunately, Aggie doesn't seem to mind.
Story 3.
When my wife and I arrived at the Halloween party, it was already lively. It was hard not to notice her fit physique showcased by her tight, jet black Catwoman outfit. Despite being a mom of 2, Alicia looks stunning. Sometimes I forget just how attractive she is. I, on the other hand, was dressed as a pirate. Hot? Not really. But not too shabby either. Alicia gave me a quick kiss on the cheek before mingling with other guests, while I made my way to the drinks area where my friends were engaged in a heated debate. As I approached, I realized they were arguing over the age-old question, Hulk or Superman? It struck me as a bit silly considering the intellect in the room. Superman was obviously the superior choice. Nevertheless, I decided to join the debate, drawing from my childhood spent immersed in Marvel and DC comics. Confident in my expertise, I hoped to settle the matter once and for all. However, my arguments only fueled the debate further, turning the conversation into chaos. But that's what happens when you mix beer with grown men. Eventually, we all agreed to table the discussion, opting instead to enjoy the abundance of beer and fun. Knowing Alicia wouldn't want to leave anytime soon, I planned to stay relatively sober. She was already having a great time chatting with her best friend Susie, who was also dressed as Catwoman. Alicia and Susie had been inseparable since middle school, despite being almost polar opposites in personality. They shared the same upbringing, often jokingly speculating about being switched at birth. However, they both detested that joke. Susie was married to Dominic, who was quite different from me in many ways. While I managed restaurants for a living, Dominic worked with his hands. Though I wasn't as active in the gym as I used to be, I still maintained a decent level of fitness from my boxing days in college. Dominic, however, works at a nearby factory. While I'm unsure of his specific role, I know it entails heavy lifting for 8 to 10 hours daily. He's practically a gym rat, resulting in a muscular physique. Unlike my neat short hair, his is long and tied back in a ponytail, complemented by a beard giving him an Aztec warrior vibe. If Dominic resembles Drogo from Game of Thrones, I'm more akin to Don Draper from Mad Men. Though I never truly warmed up to him, I didn't dislike him either. Our connection was merely through Susie, my wife's best friend. so our interactions were sporadic and never extended beyond that. And tonight was no exception. Sporting a Tarzan costume in chilly weather struck me as insensitive. I couldn't help but perceive it as an idiot move, reflecting his tendency for such actions. Despite his flirtatious behavior, which often bordered on inappropriate, the women, including Alicia, seemed to find it more amusing than offensive. This bothered me, especially considering Susie's apparent indifference. While she occasionally playfully chided him, there was no real reprimand, suggesting she took pride in his ability to attract attention. As the night progressed and Dominic's inhibitions lowered with drinks consumption, his flirtatiousness became more pronounced, regardless of the women's marital status. Though some husbands may have been angered by his advances, no one reacted, perhaps out of fear, intoxication, or a desire to avoid confrontation. However, I remained vigilant, ready to intervene if he crossed a line with Alicia. Sensing my unease, she approached me. "Are you enjoying yourself, Greg?" she shouted over the music. I nodded and took a sip of beer, observing her move to the music. Standing beside me, her attention shifted to Tarzan, silently appraising his physique. Unintentionally, I felt a surge of jealousy as I sensed her desire. It bothered me. "Who dresses as Tarzan in this weather?" Alicia snapped back to reality and faced me. "You know Dominic, sweetheart, always craving the spotlight." I chuckled, but the taste of my beer suddenly soured. Alicia noticed my shift in mood. "Are you jealous?" she asked. "Jealous of him? I don't need to strip down to get attention," I replied, my tone defensive. Alicia laughed it off. "Of course not, honey," she said, turning her attention back to him. As the night progressed and more drinks flowed, inhibitions waned. Dominic and his loincloth became less of a focus as I mingled with my genuine friends. It wasn't until later that I noticed Dominic making advances towards Alicia. Searching for her, I found them in the kitchen, engaged in a carnal conversation. My jealousy flared, and Dominic retreated upon seeing me. Alicia, sensing the tension, greeted me with forced warmth. "Hi, darling, I was just looking for you," she hurriedly said. "In the same place all night, Alicia. What were you two talking about?" "You looked awfully cozy," I asked, my tone accusatory. She tried to dismiss it. "Nothing happened, Greg. Dominic was just being his usual flirty self," she assured, but my unease lingered. "I'm just a bit tipsy, honey. Don't worry," she said, patting my cheek before leaving. For the rest of the evening, Dominic and Alicia kept their distance, exchanging only secretive glances. It was enough to unsettle me. I needed a break. The beer was kicking in, so I needed a bathroom break. Afterward, I bumped into Dominic as if he'd trailed me. "Got a problem, Greg?" he slurred, his gaze menacing. "What?" I felt the surrealness of the moment. He accused me of looking down on him due to my wealth, inciting superiority. It puzzled me. "You're drunk, Dominic. Go home before you say something you'll regret," I said, moving past him. "Regret what? Like sleeping with your pretty wife?" he jabbed, grabbing my attention. I confronted him, warning him to keep my wife out of his twisted thoughts. He smirked, dismissing them as memories, not fantasies. His words struck me like thunder, ending the conversation. "You're full of it," I retorted, less certain now. Then he made crude remarks about Alicia, crossing a line. Enraged, I struck him, the impact echoing through the drywall. Descending the stairs, I found Alicia, her tear-filled eyes confirming Dominic's claims. Panic ensued as Dominic lay unconscious. Amid the chaos, Alicia approached me, her question frozen on her lips. A glance told her I knew. Her teary eyes confirmed Dominic's words. "Call emergency! Dominic's unconscious!" she cried. Screams echoed from above, but I stood there, looking at Alicia, searching for the woman I married. Honestly, I didn't care about Dominic's fate at that moment. "What the hell did you do to my husband?" A scream pierced the air behind me, followed by fists punching my back. I dodged Susie's swings and someone pulled her away. "Greg!" "What the hell?" Richard, the party host, questioned, noticing the chaos. Ignoring him, I faced Susie. "Did you know your husband slept with Alicia?" Her silence spoke volumes, confirming her knowledge without anger or denial. She just looked at me as if she knew everything. Alicia's hand rested gently on my shoulder. "Greg, we need to talk, but not here," she said softly. I turned to her, unleashing a surge of rage unlike any I'd felt before. It was so intense, tears welled in my eyes, a release of emotion preventing me from exploding. "He woke up!" a shout echoed from above. Susie hurried back upstairs. My anger began to fade as the gravity of the situation sank in. What if I had eliminated Dominic in a moment of anger? I could face lifelong consequences, even assault charges. jeopardizing my hard-earned career over a drunken mistake. The same drunken mistake who slept with my wife. "Greg, come on, honey. Let's get out of here. We need to talk," Alicia pleaded. "Us? No, Alicia. You're going home with your boyfriend and his wife. I'm leaving," I retorted, heading for the front door. Alicia grabbed me in desperation. "Greg, you can't leave me here. We're going home and we're going to talk. Do you hear me? You're not leaving me behind," she cried, her face streaked with tears, a mix of fury and sadness. It made no sense what she was angry about. "I can't handle this, Alicia. Don't go home. I could end up in jail for assault. I don't want to add domestic violence to the mix." "Damn you, Greg. Damn you. Want to punch me? Go ahead, coward. At least you'll acknowledge me. Damn. It'd be the first time you've touched me in weeks." She jabbed her finger into my chest as her anger escalated, leaving me puzzled by its intensity. She was the one in the wrong, yet she was furious. "Is that it? Because I don't cuddle you every night? Is that your lame excuse? Is that why you cheated with this idiot?" She didn't respond verbally. Her defiant glare spoke volumes. "Just so you know, Alicia, I earn a living. I don't have a husband to pay my bills. Maybe if you had a job, you'd understand what it's like to come home exhausted." Suddenly, I remembered our audience, hanging on every word like they were watching a movie. Alicia was mocking me. "Poor Greg, too tired for his wife, yet finds time for adult movies. Maybe if you paid attention to your wife instead of silicone Barbie dolls online, she wouldn't confide in her friend about feeling neglected." Alicia's voice crescendoed, fists clenched, tears streaming down her face, a mix of pain and fury. It was the ultimate humiliation. I had no witty retort or comeback. Speechless, I faced the judgmental stares of our friends and neighbors, shock, disgust, sympathy, and perhaps a hint of entertainment. I had to leave. Alicia's cries of despair echoed until I started the car and drove off into the night. This story, based on real events, is not from Greg's perspective, but mine, Richard, the party host. Yes, I have a hole the size of Dominic's next to my daughter's room. Writing from Greg's viewpoint allowed readers to feel his anger and humiliation. My wife and I discussed it extensively. It's like watching a train wreck. You can't look away. Susie's lack of anger when Greg disclosed Alicia's affair with Dominic indicated she was already aware. Was it a ménage à trois or another scenario? Frankly, a ménage à trois involving them would rival any adult movie. How long had this been going on? I also noticed the exchanged looks between Alicia and Dominic at the party, suggesting something more. Maybe I'm overanalyzing, but maybe not. It was evident Greg was neglecting Alicia carnally, perhaps in other aspects too. Was this an excuse for her infidelity? I doubt it. Does it explain why she cheated? Certainly. Women whose advances are consistently rebuffed may be more tempted to have an affair, especially if the husband shows interest in other women or watches adult movies, which can be seen as a form of betrayal. By the way, Alicia is incredibly attractive in real life. In my opinion, any man would find her irresistible. But this reinforces the saying that for every beautiful woman, there's a man tired of having lovemaking with her. The crucial question is, what happens next? Currently, the four of them are keeping silent about the situation, but it's only a matter of time before it comes out. While this story is based on true events, I didn't witness everything and had to take creative liberties, especially with Greg's inner thoughts. I sympathize with him and the tough choices he faces. Alicia treated him unfairly, regardless of her reasons. I'm uncertain whether reconciliation or divorce is the best path. Full disclosure, I'm somewhat biased, as Greg is a friend of mine. And about Superman and the Hulk, I side with Greg. Superman's powers like thermal vision, flight, and super speed would easily defeat the Hulk, unless there's kryptonite involved. But that's beside the point. "Mr. Kirkson, they're calling you on line 1. "Who is it, Betty? Mr. Ford is calling for you, sir." "Greg. Greg called me. I've been trying to reach him since the Halloween party incident. Until now, he, his wife, and their lovers remained silent. But there have been so many questions. How could something like this not happen? The public showdown was so dramatic, with elements of lovemaking, violence, and betrayal. And the epic confrontation between David and Goliath, except this time, Goliath had a glass jaw and wrote a check his drunk self couldn't cash. And David cashed it out of genuine hatred. Patch him through, Betty." Sir, he seems a bit upset." "Well, yes, his wife did publicly humiliate him. If he weren't upset, I'd be concerned." "Thank you, Betty. I'll handle it." I awaited the click indicating I was connected to Greg. "Hey, Greg, it's Richard. I've been trying to reach you since I couldn't bring myself to say these words out loud. Ever since I found out about my wife sleeping with that moron. Yeah, I needed some time to process everything, Greg replied, his voice still carrying the simmering anger beneath his composed tone. Even over the phone, his emotions were palpable. So, do you want to talk about it? I asked, hearing a chuckle from him on the other end, tinged with bitterness. It almost sounded like a snort. Why would I want to talk to you, Richard? Huh, buddy? So you can broadcast it online? Does your little story need a sequel? Are people dying to know what happened next to the guy who couldn't satisfy his wife? Can't your eager fans just wait to see how my damn life unfolds? Fine. He had read my narrative. Now, not only was he furious at his cheating wife, her deceitful friend, and her caveman lover, but he was also angry with me. Fantastic. Greg and I were high school buddies. He played baseball, I played football. Despite losing touch after school, him off to college, me joining the Air Force, we reconnected when I returned to our hometown years later. He'd landed a management job at Olive Garden. I teased him about wasting his college degree, but he persisted and quickly climbed the ranks, eventually becoming a district manager overseeing multiple restaurants, earning almost as much as me. Now, my dear friend was seething at me. Not good, Greg. Usually I'd crack a joke to diffuse tension, but in this case, it'd only make things worse. I especially liked the ending, I began, but he cut me off. I had no choice but to shut up and listen. You know, where I tucked my tail between my legs and ran off like a coward. Nice touch. His words dripped with sarcasm, leaving me feeling like a terrible friend, utterly defenseless. Greg, where are you? We need to talk, I urged. You know what's funny, Richard? I've suddenly become quite the popular guy these days, more so than ever before. Seems like everyone wants a chat with me. Must be my charming personality, he quipped, his voice slurring slightly. I could hear the clinks of liquid pouring into a glass. Greg, are you drunk? I asked, concerned. No, Richard, I was drunk an hour ago. Can't tell you who I am now, he retorted sarcastically. All right, I admit it, I was a lousy friend, but I'm here to make it right. Where are you, Greg? I said, hastily grabbing my coat and keys, momentarily forgetting my work obligations. Screw you, Richard. Not telling you where I am. Don't you dare show up at this bar. I'll mess you up if you do, he warned before the line went dead. But I didn't need him to tell me. I knew exactly where he was. There were only a handful of bars in town worth going to, and Greg had his favorite at Moe's, partly because he had a thing for the cute bartender there. She was the type who could flirt and seem unattainable at the same time, which only added to her allure. Yet, despite her charm, she wasn't busy when I walked in. My heart sank seeing Greg alone at the bar, the sole patron in the place. Checking my watch, I realized it was just past noon. Karen, the bartender, greeted me with a wave, her eyes showing concern. Does this handsome guy belong to you? She teased, though her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. I nodded subtly, gesturing for her to give us some privacy with a tilt of my head towards Greg. It was all I managed before his fist connected with my face, sending me reeling and seeing stars. No wonder Dominic ended up in bad shape. Before I knew it, I was on the floor, wiping blood from my lip as Greg glared down at me. Eventually, he shook his head and returned to the bar stool. I picked myself up, signaling to Karen to keep quiet as I made my way over to Greg before he noticed me again. She stood before us, eyes wide as saucers. As she started to approach, I silently waved and nodded, signaling that it was all right. In response, she nodded back and resumed clearing tables. Now that that's settled, can we talk? I asked, mustering up courage as I sat down beside him. He took another sip of his beer and shook his head. Off the record? He quipped sarcastically. I chuckled inwardly. At least his sense of humor was intact. Anyway, you really hit a nerve there, he said with disdain. How's your relationship with your mom? You've met her, right? Yeah. I still remember her frisking me to make sure I didn't bring any forbidden stuff into her house. We laughed about it later, Greg recounted, taking another sip before meeting my gaze. For God's sake, Richard. It was bad enough going through that, then reading about it and knowing all my friends knew it was me. Greg, I just penned it down. I never meant to embarrass you. And besides, no one will even know it's you. I tried to reassure both him and myself. 2 cats, Tarzan, and a pirate. Plus the pirate who tossed Tarzan into the wall. How many damn Halloween parties do you think that's happened at? Most of them are the same. Greg looked like he wanted to punch me again. You find this funny? Okay, humor was definitely not the way to go. You're right, Greg. I was an idiot. I genuinely apologize for putting you in that spot. Well, I'm not sorry for punching you, he retorted. I rubbed my chin and chuckled. You still punch like a girl. No wonder you always got your backside kicked in boxing. That seemed to break the tension. and it continued to thaw. I managed to coax him away from Moe's and into my car. Karen shot me a grateful look and hugged me as we left. "Take care of him, Richard. He's going through a lot," she said. My jaw was throbbing and beginning to swell, but I got Greg out of there, and that was what mattered most. The moment I secured him into my passenger seat, he drifted off, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Instead of heading to his mom's, I drove him to my place. Along the way, I called another friend, John. "How's it going, Richie Rich?" He greeted me cheerfully as he answered the phone. John was one of those guys who still acted like he was in his 20s. A great guy, though quite immature. I emphasize very, since most guys are at least a little immature. He's the one who sparked the whole Hulk versus Superman debate, always the life of the party. However, none of the wives really want their husbands to be under his influence. He had a knack for bringing out the teenage troublemaker in his friends. But we all love him. "John, I need your hand. I found Greg at Moe's. Might need some help getting him into my place and settled in bed. He's out cold." "Damn. Glad you tracked him down. Been looking for him all week. After what that idiot did to him, it's a miracle he didn't do something drastic." John parked his Mustang behind my Tahoe in my driveway, and together we tackled the task of moving 200 pounds of dead weight onto the couch in my basement. Not an easy feat. After chatting for a bit, he headed out with the promise that I'd keep him updated. Being home early meant I had the house all to myself, which was a rarity. So rare, in fact, that I found myself at a loss for what to do. Didn't want to step out in case Greg woke up disoriented, so I fired up the George Foreman grill for steak and baked some potatoes. Then I flipped through my cable sports package, hoping to catch a good game or at least some interesting sports talk. Settled on a documentary and dug into my meal. It wasn't long before my wife, Nikki, walked in with our kids in tow. "Hey, what brings you home so early?" she asked, planting a kiss on my cheek. The kids scampered upstairs. "Found Greg at Moe's, sloshed as hell. Brought him back here and laid him out in the basement," I explained. She looked hesitant. "Are you sure that's a good idea? I don't want any drunken antics in front of the kids." "He'll be fine, sweetheart. I'll keep an eye on him," I assured her, feeling her hand caress my cheek, sending a shiver down my spine. That's when she noticed the swelling. "Richard, what the hell? Did he do this?" "I'm all right, honey. Don't worry about it." "Rich, get him out of here." "Honey, everything's under control. The poor guy just found out his wife was cheating on him a few weeks back, and it happened so publicly. He's on edge. Plus, he's been dealing with it all alone. I'm his friend. He needed an outlet for his pent-up anger, and if that meant taking some hits, I didn't mind. Besides, my jaw's not as fragile as Tarzan's. Maybe he should consider a different costume next year." Nikki couldn't help but chuckle at that. Watching Tarzan get his backside kicked by a pirate was pretty amusing. I doubt Jane would approve. "Yeah, Tarzan definitely got what was coming to him. Dominic should spend less time pumping iron and more time hitting the bag," Nikki quipped. "Or at least learn to dodge," she added. We shared a laugh once her giggles subsided. One thing I've always admired about Nikki is her personality and sense of humor. It's one of the reasons why I can't stay angry with her for too long. I headed downstairs to check on Greg. His thunderous snoring assured me he was still very much alive, albeit functionally comatose. I slipped a pillow under his head when he let out a sound that could wake the dead. His drink's breath could have knocked out a bull. "What the heck, Greg?" I muttered, the stench clinging to me. I needed to step away. A few hours later, a zombie-like version of my friend emerged from the abyss. His bloodshot eyes screamed exhaustion and distress as he shuffled around my kitchen. Nikki shot me a silent warning that spoke volumes. "Keep him in line or he's out." I approached him in the kitchen. "How you feeling, buddy?" "Feels like my wife cheated on me, humiliated me in front of the whole neighborhood, then ran me over with a truck. At least your memory's intact. 2 out of 3 ain't bad." His eyes narrowed. "My memory's fine. I remember your damn story too. Remember how you socked me in the face for it?" I rubbed my tender jaw. "That part seems fuzzy. Might need a repeat just to be sure it's done." There was no real venom in his words. Despite his talk of wanting to punch me again, I knew he wouldn't. "I've said it before, but I'm really sorry about that story, Greg. I didn't think it would reach as many people as it did, and I certainly didn't think you'd find out about it. I was wrong. People actually read it. I even got a message from this guy I know who heard about the party from someone, and then read your story online." "Who's this guy?" "You don't know him. He's this loudmouth named Harry from Virginia." I chuckled. "Harry Inva, huh? Heard of him? Nice guy once you get past his attitude. By the way, he's on my side and thinks you're an idiot too, Greg said, grinning. Yeah, well, I'm sure he felt that way before reading the story I wrote about you, I replied. Greg nodded and chuckled. I gave him a friendly pat on the back, which he didn't seem to mind, confirming we were okay. Richard, why'd you have to paint me as a wimp? Did I really just bolt like that? Wimp? Greg, you took the guy down in one punch. I was half expecting you to bite his ear off. If you boxed like that in college, you'd have been a champ. No one sees you as weak. Screw you. It's a skill I've still got. Idiot. He smirked and shook his head. I really handed him his rear, didn't I? Pride and laughter blended in his voice. Hell yeah. Bet your sweet rear you couldn't pull that off, he teased, nudging me. Nah. Might take me 2 hits, I quipped back, unable to stifle a chuckle. It was good to see Greg. So, what went down after I split? Kept looking over my shoulder, thinking I was headed to the slammer. Well, Greg, after you bailed from the Halloween party, Alicia let out this wail like she was facing a firing squad and crumpled to the floor. She sobbed loudly like a broken Catwoman. Nikki rushed to her aid, helping her up and leading her to the couch. Susie, the other Catwoman, came down the stairs with her disgraced Tarzan, holding his head as she guided him. Alicia caught sight of them and flew into a rage. You idiot! What did you tell Greg? You've ruined my life, you idiot! Tarzan, already battered by the pirate, now dodged Catwoman's claws, while Catwoman #2 tried to intervene. Alicia, stop it! Cut it out! Susie yelled, defending her husband. Tarzan, being saved by a woman from a woman, only stoked his fire. Can this idiot embarrass the Jungle Man any further? You should have said something, right? You idiot. Couldn't take no for an answer. What's wrong with you? The Jungle Man regarded Alicia's fury with detachment. It was clear he hadn't grasped everything yet. The knockout must have sobered him up. He knew he'd caused today's pain. Alicia, I'm sorry. I was drunk, he said. She stopped attacking and collapsed to the floor again. What do I do now, Susie? What do I do now? Back to Richard's kitchen. After that, they had to haul Dominic to the ER. Turns out he had a concussion. He wanted to press charges, but Susie and Alicia talked him out of it. Alicia pleaded with him not to. She knew if you got arrested, there'd be little hope of your return. Greg chuckled and shook his head. In any case, there's little hope left for this, I sighed, nodding sadly. So, Greg, what happened after you split? All we heard was the rubber hitting the road and the roar of your engine. I wanted to chase after you, but my Tahoe was packed with other cars. I feared you might crash. You haven't responded to any of our calls. Yeah, well, I needed to get away and think, you know? I couldn't wrap my head around it. All our friends are looking at me, judging me. I needed space. So, you headed to your mom's place. It must have been tough going back there. Yeah, well, life throws you curveballs sometimes. The only way to deal with it is to do something out of the ordinary. Greg, October 31st, party crap. Damn it. Damn it, these damn women. I sped recklessly along side streets leading out of town. Honestly, I had no clue where I was going. Stop signs, speed limits, traffic lights, none of it mattered. I drove like I was the only one on the road that mattered. What's that sound? I glanced at the passenger seat, recognizing Alicia's ringtone. Her lovely face illuminated my Android screen. She smiled at me, a loving smile captured in time. I remember taking this photo. I was so happy. So full of love and adoration. Damn lie. I fought the urge to chuck my phone out the window. Her picture on the screen lied to me. If I answered, the voice on the other end would lie to me. The cheerful melody announcing her call was a lie. Lies. She slept with Dominic. Maybe they even kissed. Passionately. Excitedly. Damn it. I bet the idiot loved it. Another man's wife in his bed? Who did he think he was? I was the one by her side when she was sick. In the delivery room with her twice. Promising to love her in sickness and health. I devoted my life to her. The persistent ringtone tormented me with its falsehoods. He paused for a moment, then continued. I shut it off and pulled out the battery. Silence. No more lies. I drove aimlessly around the city, my mind on autopilot, protecting itself from overload. The images of tonight's events and worse, the scenarios I imagined between my wife and that idiot in the jungle, were overwhelming my mind, overclocking my processor. Reality hit me when I gazed up and found myself parked in front of my parents' garage. I couldn't recall driving here. It seemed my subconscious guided me back to my childhood abode. Cutting the engine, I entered. Every child holds a key to their parents' home, even if they vowed never to return. Well, perhaps not every child. But in my case, it was late. The living room, unchanged for decades, greeted me in darkness. The sofa, coffee table, lamp, all fixtures frozen in time exactly as I remembered them. Strangely, I found solace in this familiarity. That night, in one drunken conversation with a Neanderthal, everything changed in an instant. I've always been skeptical of stories where worlds shift in a blink, except in tragedy. This night turned me into a believer. My entire understanding of life was upended by a single conversation. Returning to my childhood home brought a sense of stability after an earthquake shatters buildings and fractures the ground. In such times, people crave calmness. Stability was what I needed now. For the moment, I was safe at home. "Who's there?" My mom's voice rang out, envisioning her wielding a baseball bat, ready to fend off intruders. "It's me, Ma." "Gregory?" "Yes." Suddenly, the light flicked on, momentarily blinding me. I squinted to shield my eyes. "Why on earth are you skulking around in the dark? Trying to give me a heart attack?" "Glad to see you too, Mom." As my eyes adjusted, I faced an elderly lady, clad in floral pajamas, hair in curlers. "Why are you here at this hour? And what's with the idiotic outfit?" Straight to the point. "That's my mother." In that moment, I realized I was still in most of my pirate costume. My hat, parrot, and eye patch were long gone. Now, I just looked, well, like an idiot. "Long story, Ma. Listen, I'll be staying here for a while. The kids will leave tomorrow, but I'll be back. I'll fill you in, but not in front of them." Okay. I didn't ask her to stay with her. I simply informed her of my intentions. This might appear odd to most, but it's normal for us. My family isn't what you'd call affectionate. My dad is straightforward, never saying more than necessary and expecting the same in return. Hugs are brief, "I love you," reserved for dire moments. My parents were a perfect match, both reserved in affection. How they even conceived me remains a puzzling mystery. They were either destined to find each other or destined to suffer alone. "All right, Gregory, you know where everything is. I'm going back to bed." My mom's frail figure vanished around the corner, her voice trailing. "And lock up." The next morning, I checked my phone, finding 29 missed calls. 15 from Alicia, some from Richard, and a few from others at the party. I ignored them, knowing they'd likely consist of people eager for gossip about the affair. After a restless night, pain, anger, and confusion lingered. I also wondered about the police. What happened to Dominic after I left? Did he go to the hospital, press charges? Would I end up in jail? I slipped out of the house before my mom woke, leaving a note explaining my departure. If Alicia called, Mom was instructed to inform her I'd reach out when ready. I parked near my favorite bar, seeking solace in strong drink to numb the pain. For the next couple of weeks, I hid at my mom's, only encountering Alicia when dropping off the kids or fetching belongings. Our interactions were strained, ending with her upset. Before leaving, I overheard her talking on the phone, ears perking up as I listened. If it had been the creep, I would have lost it. But it was Susie, her half of the conversation leaving me unsure if it was better or worse. I divided my free time between my parents' place and the bar. With Dad away on business, it was just Mom and me. Oh, joy. Deep conversations weren't her thing, though she listened attentively and offered support, even if she didn't fully grasp the situation. I'd never discuss adult films with her, especially after her warnings in my younger years about blindness and hairy palms. During my stay, we spoke little. I outlined why I was staying, and she listened, but didn't press for details. When she asked what I'd do next, all I could do was shrug and admit I didn't know. "You'll figure it out," was her encouraging response. We didn't revisit the topic. Oddly comforting, it spared me from endless retelling and emotional coddling. I was free to grieve in my own way. Taking all my sick and personal days, I couldn't face anyone, even though no coworkers were at the party. Living in a small town, gossip spread like wildfire. I wasn't just dealing with infidelity, it was public humiliation. Poor Greg, too busy with obscene films to satisfy his wife. Eventually, I had to shut off my phone. It kept ringing incessantly, faces pleading for answers. Screw them all. Whether the universe or Dominic's pride intervened, the cops never came. It was intriguing to observe my friends' behavior. They sent emails and even called, yet none visited my parents' house. I realized that when people are unsure what to say, they often avoid the situation altogether. They weren't neglectful friends, just unsure how to help. This silence, both a curse and a blessing, left me alone with my thoughts constantly. To quiet the disturbing images in my mind, I sought solace in drinks at the bar, with Karen becoming both my deity and my salvation. The hardest part about staying with my mother was being separated from my children. It was self-imposed exile, but it still stung. I knew seeing them meant facing Alicia, akin to reaching a warm bed across a half-frozen lake, so I drank even more to numb the pain. It took Karen showing me a story, Caught Cat Women, penned by a friend, to break the cycle. It mirrored my own script, featuring 2 cat women, a pirate, that damn Tarzan, Superman, and Hulk. The nerve. Fuming, I dialed 7 digits. "Good morning, Mr. Kirkson's office. This is Betty. How can I help you today, Richard?" "Today, at Richard's place. So, what's the plan with Alicia? Divorce? Separation? Give her a thrashing?" Greg chuckled sadly and stared at his plate. "Do I have to choose?" he quipped, lacking enthusiasm. I saw the agony etched on his face, replaying Halloween's events in his mind, her words echoing like a broken record. "Greg, I've got to ask. You can tell me to buzz off if it's too personal, but about that adult film? What did she mean?" Greg blushed, shifting uncomfortably. "So what? I watch them occasionally, not every day. Are you implying she doesn't or you don't?" he retorted defensively. "Sure, I watch them, but Alicia said you were viewing them instead of being carnal with her." "That's true. Buzz off, Richard. It's too personal." "All right, buddy, fair enough. But I just want to understand what went wrong. You two seemed so happy. I never suspected a thing." He gazed down at his meal while his fork traced circles on the plate. "She just doesn't get it, Rich." "What's she not getting?" Greg let his fork drop and ran his hands over his face, taking a deep breath. It was a sigh tinged with sadness, perhaps mixed with guilt. "I work 10 to 12 hours every day, sometimes even 5 days a week if I'm lucky. When I get home, I'm exhausted. I'm stressed out. I deal with irate investors, clients, managers, carnal molestation claims, discrimination claims, and everything in between. It all falls on my shoulders. If something goes wrong at the restaurants, like some customer claiming to have spotted a rat and demanding free food, I'm the one who has to handle it." He paused, gathering himself to continue. I listened, waiting for him to spill it all out. "Alicia requires a lot of foreplay. A lot. I have to spend 30 minutes just on foreplay. Then, when she's ready, we can start having physical engaging. She likes to change positions frequently. On top of that, she wants me to talk dirty to her throughout. I love my wife, I really do. And when I have the energy, it's fantastic. I know guys who complain that their wives are frigid, unimaginative, or just want to get it over with. Alicia is none of those. But I don't have the stamina to do this every night, especially after dealing with all the crap I face during the day." He paused, glancing away. "Rich, sometimes I just feel better being alone. I hate to admit it. Every man dreams of a woman like Alicia. A passionate woman who genuinely enjoys lovemaking. I know I'm lucky to have her." But I noticed his eyes starting to cloud over. It's tough to reconcile the pain of marriage when you realize the part you played in your own troubles. "I do so much for her, for the girls. I work my backside off to give them everything I didn't have as a kid. My dad was very thrifty. He only bought what I needed. I want more for my girls. And then there's my wife, and I enjoy spending time with them. They're my whole world. But sometimes, I just wish I didn't have to do something for someone else. When I come home after dealing with all the crap at work, sometimes I don't always want to be a dad or a husband or a boss. I think I missed a bit of that. How long has it been since you two were carnal? Before the party." He shook his head. "I don't know, Rich. I really don't know. I didn't even realize so much time had passed." I nodded, a flicker of understanding dawning on me. Then I saw anger flash in his eyes. "But that doesn't give her the right to do what she did. Though, Richard, I didn't humiliate her in front of everyone. I didn't cheat on her. She should have come to me with our issues. Why didn't she come to me?" I had to take a risk with my next remark. It was crucial to convey my point to him without seeming like I was taking her side. "Maybe for the same reason you never explained to her why you watch adult films. Communication can be tough, especially if you don't realize you need to say something in the first place. How do you communicate your unhappiness to your spouse? Simply put, you say, 'I'm unhappy.' Touché." Things were escalating too much. Usually at moments like this, I'd crack a joke, so I switched gears. "So, Greg, about my wall." He caught on that I was teasing him and grinned, shaking his head. "Call it even for this one." Idiot. I thought the punch in the face had evened things out. Not quite. I chuckled. Seeing Greg as he was before Halloween was refreshing, even if it was fleeting. Fair enough. That's when I noticed Nikki standing in the doorway with a peculiar expression. Her eyes urged me to see her right away. I left Greg to his meal and approached her. "What's wrong, dear?" She glanced around nervously and drew me closer to whisper. "Somehow Alicia found out Greg's here. She's on her way. Damn, John. Probably called her to vent or something stupid. Unknowingly gave away Greg's location. You need to intercept that woman at the door." Nikki raised her hands and shook her head. "Rich, I'm not getting involved in this mess. Greg needs to face this. He's been avoiding her for 2 weeks." I felt frustration rising toward my wife. "She cheated on him. Haven't you forgotten that?" "No, I haven't. I've got a damn hole in the wall as a reminder." I glanced at Greg, who seemed oblivious to the impending showdown. "What do you want me to do, Nikki?" Her expression softened with resolve when she saw my determination to help my friend. "He has to handle this himself, babe. You can be there for him as a friend, help him through it, but he can't run from it." She patted my chest and left. I turned to prepare Greg for what was coming. "Greg, I heard your conversation. You can't exactly whisper. She's on her way." He rubbed his chin and winced. Then his expression shifted to determination. "Fine," he said, pushing away from the table. Turning to me, he met my gaze. "I'm ready to face this," he declared. With that, he rose and walked out of my back door. "Greg?" A beautiful sunset. Soft hues painted the pale sky, serene and almost calming. "Greg, honey?" The serenity shattered. I didn't respond to the alarmed voice signaling the arrival of my unfaithful wife. I didn't even turn to look at her. My eyes remained fixed on the sky above. Alicia interpreted my lack of reaction as an invitation, which in some sense she wasn't entirely wrong about. She settled beside me on Richard's back porch, drawing her knees to her chest as if seeking protection. "I've been searching everywhere for you, honey," she said, starting off in the worst possible way. "I've been in the same place all night," I muttered, deliberately echoing the exact words I'd used when I found her cozying up to Dominic in Richard's kitchen a couple of weeks ago. She seemed a bit puzzled by my response. "Greg, we need to talk," she said, and I nodded in agreement. From my side vision, I could sense her anguish. I avoided looking directly at her face, but it seemed like a grim sight. Swollen eyes, flushed cheeks, a somber expression. At least that's how her voice conveyed it. "I love you, honey." It's a lie. I cut her off. "Greg, stop it. Alicia, just stop it. You can't claim to love me and then embarrass me the way you did, airing our issues in public like that. I would never do that to you." "What are you talking about, Greg? You did this to me," she said, her voice rising with anger. "You stormed down the stairs like a madman in front of everyone. You asked Susie if she knew I was sleeping with her husband right in front of everyone's eyes. If you wanted to talk privately, you could have pulled me aside and yelled at me in the car. But no, you were the first one to air out my business like that." In a way, she had a point. I didn't see it that way at the time. I was blinded by rage. "Okay, Alicia, I'll give you that, but I didn't initiate this. Your damn boyfriend confronted me, telling me all about your indiscretions in front of other people. I handled it the best I could. I was furious, rightfully so. Could I have handled it differently?" I paused to rein in my emotions. "But I didn't cheat with anyone," I continued. "You didn't have someone come up to you and rub my betrayal in your face." I looked her squarely in the eyes. The anger drained from her expression, replaced by remorse and guilt. "I know, Greg," she said softly. I simply shook my head. "Do you really think so, Alicia? Do you really?" Her eyes sparked again. "Maybe you didn't physically betray me, Greg, but you weren't present for me. Remember last night when I wanted closeness? And you—" I shook my head. "It was on my birthday. I treated myself to some beautiful lingerie from Victoria's Secret. It was so hot. I indulged in a fragrant bubble bath, getting excited thinking about the night ahead. I lathered my body with eucalyptus-scented lotion, spent an hour doing my hair and makeup. Do you recall that night?" I did remember that night. That was the day I had to fire Frank. He was my close friend, one of my assistant managers back when I worked at Olive Garden. We'd become good friends over the years. When the allegations surfaced, I stood up for him vehemently. I was certain he wouldn't do something so reckless. But the girl had text messages. Damn text messages. When they emerged, I was livid. I was the one who promoted him. I was the one who vouched for him. And I was the one who had to deal with it. Or they'd deal with me. So, needless to say, I wasn't in the best mood that evening. But I didn't forget her birthday. I made a reservation at her favorite restaurant, all set for a nice dinner. But all Alicia wanted that night was dessert. We went out to dinner for your birthday, and then we made love that night. Alicia, I recalled this. She shook her head sadly. We had love-making, Greg. You couldn't even enjoy it. Then when I tried to cuddle with you, you pushed me away, saying you were tired. That's why I gave you space. Her voice caught and she swallowed hard. I knew she wasn't finished yet, so I waited for her to continue. Then I woke up in the middle of the night. I saw you at your computer. I saw you watching adult films and pleasuring yourself. The words came out forcefully, and then she broke down. Her body trembled as she tried to cry silently, but to no avail. I sat beside her, speechless. Slowly, I began to grasp her perspective. Hearing her side of things opened my eyes. Until tonight, she was just a deceitful cheater. Now, I wasn't so sure who she really was. I get it, Alicia, all right? I took you for granted. But do you truly grasp this, Greg? Do you comprehend how deeply this devastated me? Can you fathom the pain of realizing that, at your best, you're not enough to satisfy your husband? I doubt you do. After that, I made a pact with myself to stop initiating lovemaking with you. I wanted you to desire me, but you never did. So, that's why you ended up with Dominic. Did he make you feel like a woman? She sniffled beside me and wiped her nose on her sleeve. Yes, Greg, he and Susie did. Damn it. Susie and I got drunk once in high school. Something happened that night. In the morning, we were mortified. We chalked it up to the drinks and pretended it never occurred. Well, over a decade later, I found myself at her doorstep in tears. A few weeks afterward, feeling like the most inadequate woman alive, I went to her place. I was so low, so shattered. I told her I needed to get drunk, and we did. The feeling of inadequacy started to fade, but it never truly went away. And how did you end up in bed with her and Glass Joe? Dominic came home from work and found us completely wasted. Susie confided in him about my issues. He began telling me how beautiful I was, how he desired me. Susie backed him up, mentioning our past in high school. He got excited and suggested we kiss. We were so drunk that we obliged. It all began with a playful kiss, but before I knew it, things had escalated beyond control. How many times did you sleep with them? She turned to gaze at the now darkened sky above us and whispered, Twice. It stung. The drunken episode was bad enough. I could eventually move past it, but knowing she'd been with them again was a whole other blow. So, at the party in the kitchen, what were you and Dominic discussing? Her eyes flashed with anger and a hint of guilt as she recalled it. He was drunk, complimenting my hot costume and suggesting we go to their place for some fun. I was worried someone might overhear, so I tried to hush him. I admitted my mistake, saying the three of us couldn't continue. Then he got a bit forceful, pressing against me. That's when you walked over? Yes. I gathered my lingerie in a pile. Wasn't that what you said? She nibbled her lip, shaking her head. I was furious, Greg. Seeing Dominic pestering me like that just reminded me how little you valued me. Were you planning on heading to his place later for some fun since he appreciated you? She shook her head, locking eyes with me. No. I was hoping you'd finally take the initiative. I chose the Catwoman outfit because I knew you loved Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman Returns. You once told me how you fell for her because of that suit. I saw the way you looked at me in it. I saw desire in your eyes. Mine. I almost skipped the party altogether to get what I'd been yearning for. I wish I had. I hoped when we got home you'd take me. And then Dominic happened. She spat his name out. Well, none of this would have happened if you hadn't slept with him. Why didn't you just talk to me, Alicia? She sadly shook her head again, sniffing. I don't know, Greg. I wish I did. Lord knows why I didn't. Well, I guess there's enough blame to go around. She turned to me, hopeful. So what now? Greg, I don't want to lose you. I love you so much. I'd do anything for us to get through this. My head swirled. Can we get through this? Can I forgive her, knowing I played a part in our downfall? Leave the past behind? I don't know, Alicia. So much has happened. It'll take a lot for us to start healing from this. A glimmer of hope sparked within her. She wiped her tears, gripping my hand. Please, honey, I'll do anything. Just give me a chance to show you how much I love you. I met her gaze, sensing hope. I began to feel it too. It'd take time, but maybe we could mend each other. If we both fought hard enough, there might be a chance. All right, Alicia, but it'll take several steps. First, we need counseling. It's necessary. Obviously, we have a lot to work through. We need to learn how to communicate with each other. She kissed my cheek, embracing my neck. Yes, darling, whatever you say. Secondly, you need to cut ties with Susie. That's when I saw the light fade from her eyes, feeling it dim in my heart. Well, what did you say? I said you need to end your friendship with Susie. Greg, why are you asking me to do this? I reclined in my chair, staring at her in disbelief. Seriously, Alicia? You cheated on me with her and her husband. What do you expect me to do? Just trust that it won't happen again? Every time you're with her or talk to her, do you realize what goes through my mind? How can I heal if this wound keeps getting salt rubbed in it? She recoiled as if I'd struck her, tears welling up in her eyes. We locked eyes in silence as seconds stretched into eternity. You want me to choose between my best friend and my husband? I can't do it, Greg. Please don't make me. Words couldn't convey the agony that coursed through me at that moment. Strangely, it was worse than catching her in the act. This time, there was no anger to mask it. My heart constricted painfully, crushed by the weight of the realization that it was too much to bear. The fact that she couldn't choose me over her best friend was devastating, a catastrophe of unfathomable proportions. The woman I loved most didn't love me the same way. I wasn't her one and only love. I shared her heart with another. Dominic's irrelevant now. I don't care about him. This is bigger, Alicia. But she couldn't sever her ties with Susie. The bond was too strong, rivaling her love for me. She couldn't let it go, even if it meant sacrificing our marriage. Sadly, we divorced less than a year later. Alicia fought tooth and nail to prevent it, even stooping to humiliating herself. I never imagined I'd see her pride crumble like that. She begged me at my workplace not to leave her, embarrassing herself in front of everyone. I begged too. It was a heart-wrenching plea that left everyone uncomfortable. Even I secretly hoped I'd give her another chance. But I couldn't bear the thought of her being around him as long as she refused to relinquish her friendship. In essence, I was right. No spouse should have to share. A year later, the wounds still run deep. There are no winners here. We do our best for the kids, avoiding putting each other down in their presence. Yet, many nights I've been a shoulder for Greg to cry on. But there was one silver lining this Halloween. He brought a date to my party. She wasn't dressed as Catwoman. Maybe she's just a rebound, not his next great love. But finding someone new is still progress. Real life isn't about neatly packaged endings. It's a messy, gradual healing process. Alicia, Dominic, and Susie didn't show up at the party. They cut off contact with the rest of us. Susie remained staunchly by Alicia's side, accusing Greg of unfairness and trying to force an impossible choice. In my view, the choice wasn't impossible. Alicia simply didn't want to be married as much as a loving wife should. She claimed she'd do anything, but actions speak louder than words. She might have been willing to play the part of a love-making slave or a doting housewife, but when it came to sacrificing something personally significant, our marriage wasn't worth it to her. In the end, he's better off without her.
Story 4.
Elijah Langston stepped out of his Tesla Model S, straightening his tailored Navy suit as the valet took his keys. The Seattle skyline glittered behind him, a testament to the city's growth he'd contributed to with his own 2 hands and the bridges his firm had built. He glanced at his watch, a subtle Patek Philippe that spoke of success without shouting it, and noted he was precisely on time. As always. There you are, darling. Felicity's voice rang out across the parking lot. Eli turned to see his wife striding towards him, her crimson dress hugging her curves in a way that still made his heart skip a beat after 15 years of marriage. Her smile, bright and inviting, lit up her face as she reached him. Wouldn't miss it for the world, Eli replied, leaning in to kiss her cheek. The scent of her perfume Chanel No. 5, the same one he'd gifted her on their 5th anniversary, wafted over him. How are you feeling about tonight? Felicity's hand found his, their fingers intertwining with the ease of long practice. Oh, a little nervous, a lot excited. Carter's been hyping up this dinner for weeks. Says it could be a game changer for the company. At the mention of Carter's name, something tightened in Eli's chest. He pushed the feeling aside, focusing instead on his wife's excitement. Well, with you heading up the marketing, I'm sure it will be. You've worked hard for this, Fel. They made their way into the restaurant, a high-end establishment with views overlooking Puget Sound. The maitre d' recognized them immediately, ushering them to a private room where several other couples were already gathered. Eli noted the way Felicity's eyes darted around the room, her smile widening as she spotted familiar faces. Felicity, Eli, so glad you could make it, a booming voice called out. Carter Jennings, CEO of Technova and Felicity's boss, strode towards them. He was tall, with the kind of effortless charm that seemed to draw people in. Eli felt himself tense slightly as Carter embraced Felicity, the hug lasting a beat longer than felt strictly professional. "Carter, always a pleasure," Eli said, extending his hand. Carter's grip was firm, almost challenging. "Eli, my man, how's the bridge business treating you?" Carter's grin was all white teeth and confidence. "Can't complain. Just secured a contract for the new Duwamish River crossing," Eli replied, allowing a note of pride to creep into his voice. "That's fantastic," Felicity chimed in, her hand coming to rest on Eli's arm. "You've been working on that bid for months." Carter nodded, his attention already drifting. "Well, we've got some exciting news of our own tonight. Felicity, why don't you mingle a bit before dinner? I'm sure everyone's eager to hear about our latest project." As Felicity moved off to chat with her colleagues, Eli found himself alone with Carter. The two men regarded each other for a moment, an unspoken tension crackling between them. "You know, Eli," Carter said, his voice low, "you're a lucky man. Felicity's been an absolute game-changer for Technova. I don't know what we'd do without her." Eli's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'm well aware of my wife's talents, Carter. I've always supported her career, even when times were tough." Carter's eyebrow quirked up. Of course. I just meant, well, she's really come into her own lately. It's been incredible to watch." Before Eli could respond, a waiter appeared with a tray of champagne flutes. Carter grabbed two, handing one to Eli with a wink. "Here's to success, eh? In all its forms." As the evening progressed, Eli found himself watching Felicity more closely than usual. She was in her element, moving from group to group with easy grace, her laughter ringing out across the room. But there was something off. Her phone seemed to be a constant presence, buzzing with notifications that drew her attention away from conversations. During dinner, seated at a long table with Carter at the head, Eli noticed Felicity checking her phone beneath the tablecloth. A small smile played across her lips as she read whatever message had come through. When she looked up, her eyes met Carter's briefly before darting away. Eli took a long sip of his wine, forcing himself to focus on the conversation around him. He was being paranoid, he told himself. Felicity was busy, stressed. Her job demanded constant attention. It was nothing more than that. As the meal wound down and Carter stood to make his big announcement, a new AI integration that would revolutionize their product line, Eli felt a surge of pride for his wife. Her marketing strategy had been instrumental in bringing this project to fruition. He reached for her hand under the table, giving it a squeeze. Felicity turned to him, her smile warm but distracted. "Isn't it amazing?" she whispered. "You're amazing," Eli replied, meaning every word. For a moment, guilt flashed across Felicity's face. But then Carter was calling her name, asking her to stand and join him for the toast. As she rose, her hand slipping from Eli's, he couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted between them. The drive home was quiet, Felicity tapping away at her phone while Eli navigated the late-night traffic. He wanted to ask her about the constant messages, about the ways she and Carter had seemed so in sync all evening. But the words stuck in his throat. They'd built a life together, brick by brick from nothing. Surely that meant something. As they pulled into their driveway, the sensors triggering the lights of their modern craftsman home, Felicity finally set her phone down. "Eli," she said, her voice soft. "I just wanted to say thank you for always being there, supporting me. I know my job takes up a lot of my time and attention lately." Eli turned to her, studying the face he'd woken up to for 15 years. "You don't have to thank me, Fel. We're a team, remember? Your success is my success." Felicity leaned across the center console, pressing a kiss to his cheek. "I love you," she murmured. As they got ready for bed, moving around each other in the familiar dance of a long-married couple, Eli tried to shake off the unease that had settled over him. He was being ridiculous. Felicity loved him. They had a good life, a strong marriage. Whatever doubts had crept in during the evening were just that, doubts, with no real substance. But as he lay in bed, listening to Felicity's steady breathing beside him, Eli couldn't help but feel that something had changed. He just didn't know what or how yet. Weeks passed, and life settled back into its usual rhythm. Eli threw himself into work, overseeing the initial stages of the Duwamish River Bridge project. He took pride in the precision of his plans, the way each calculation and design choice fit together like pieces of a complex puzzle. It was satisfying work, the kind that left him feeling accomplished at the end of each day. At home, though, things fell off. Felicity was working longer hours, often coming home well after dinner. When she was around, her attention was divided, her eyes constantly drawn to her phone. Eli tried to ignore it, to push down the growing sense of unease. But it was getting harder with each passing day. One Sunday afternoon, Eli found himself in his home office, poring over schematics for the bridge project. The house was quiet, sunlight streaming through the windows and casting long shadows across his desk. He was so engrossed in his work that at first he didn't register the sound of Felicity's voice drifting up from the living room below. "I've been meaning to tell you that I started an affair with my boss." Eli froze, his pen hovering above the paper. Surely he'd misheard. But then Felicity's voice continued, clear and unmistakable. "It's been going on for a few months now. God, Shonda, I can't believe I'm actually saying this out loud." There was a pause, and Eli could hear the muffled sound of another voice on the other end of the phone. His heart was pounding so loudly, he was sure Felicity must be able to hear it from downstairs. "So are you going to leave your cuckold now?" Shonda's voice came through faintly. Felicity's laugh, once a sound that had filled Eli with joy, now cut through him like a knife. "First, I need to drain all the money out of this fool, and then I'll arrange the maximum humiliation for him and throw him out like garbage." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Eli gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles turning white. This couldn't be happening. Not Felicity. Not after everything they'd been through together. But as the conversation continued, the reality of the situation sank in. His wife, the woman he'd loved, supported, built a life with, was planning to destroy him. To take everything he'd worked for and leave him with nothing. A cold fury began to build in Eli's chest. He'd always prided himself on his self-control, his ability to approach problems logically and methodically. Now, he channeled that focus into a single thought. He would not let Felicity win. Moving quietly, Eli made his way to the door of his office. He could hear Felicity ending her call, her voice light and carefree, as if she hadn't just shattered their entire world. For a moment, he considered confronting her immediately. The urge to storm downstairs and demand answers was almost overwhelming. But then his engineer's mind kicked in. If he confronted her now, he'd be playing into her hands. She'd have time to cover her tracks, to spin the situation to her advantage. No, if he wanted to come out of this intact, he needed to be smart, calculated. He needed a plan. Eli returned to his desk, his mind already racing with possibilities. He opened his laptop, pulling up their financial records. Sure enough, there were small but consistent withdrawals from their joint accounts, nothing that would raise immediate suspicion. But over time, it added up to a significant sum. His jaw clenched as he realized how long this must have been going on, how blind he'd been to the signs. Well, no more. Felicity thought she was dealing with a fool, but she was about to learn just how wrong she was. Over the next few days, Eli put his plan into motion. He contacted his lawyer, Avery Caldwell, under the guise of a routine business matter. In reality, he laid out the situation in careful, measured terms. "I need to protect my assets," Eli explained, his voice low, even though he was alone in his office. Without tipping my hand, Avery's voice crackled over the speakerphone. "We can set up a trust, transfer most of your joint assets into it, with you as the sole beneficiary. It'll be ironclad, she won't be able to touch it." "Do it," Eli said, his decision made. "And Avery? I want to make sure I have full control of our finances moving forward. Leave just enough in the joint accounts to keep her from getting suspicious." As Avery worked on the legal side of things, Eli began his own careful maneuvering. He monitored Felicity's actions closely, noting her patterns, the time she slipped away for work meetings that always seemed to coincide with Carter's schedule. He gathered evidence, meticulously documenting every suspicious transaction, every late-night phone call. All the while, he maintained a facade of normalcy. He greeted Felicity with a kiss when she came home late, listened attentively as she talked about her day. If she noticed any change in his behavior, she gave no sign. One evening, as they sat across from each other at the dinner table, Felicity looked up from her ever-present phone with a smile. "Darling, I've been thinking, with how well things are going at work, maybe we should look into some new investment opportunities. Diversify our portfolio a bit." Eli took a sip of his wine, considering his response carefully. "That's an interesting idea. Did you have something specific in mind?" Felicity's eyes lit up, and Eli could see the calculation behind them. "Actually, yes. Carter mentioned this amazing startup that's looking for investors. It's still in the early stages, but the potential returns are incredible." "Is that so?" Eli kept his voice neutral, even as his suspicions were confirmed. This was at the scheme she and Carter had cooked up to siphon away his hard-earned money. "Why don't you send me some information on it? I'd love to take a look." Felicity beamed at him, clearly thinking she'd hooked him. "Of course. I'll email you the details tonight." "Oh, Eli, I'm so excited about this. It could be huge for us." As Felicity launched into a detailed explanation of the supposed startup, Eli let her words wash over him. He nodded at the appropriate moments, asked the right questions. All the while, his mind was racing, refining his plan. Later that night, as Felicity slept beside him, Eli lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The weight of her betrayal pressed down on him, threatening to suffocate him. But beneath the pain, a cold determination had taken root. Felicity thought she was clever, that she could manipulate him so easily. She had no idea what was coming. Eli closed his eyes, a grim smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He would give her exactly what she wanted right up until the moment he took everything away. The game was on, and Elijah Langston intended to win. Eli sat at his desk, methodically reviewing the latest bank statements. His eyes narrowed as he noticed yet another suspicious transfer from their joint account. Felicity was getting bolder, the amounts larger. He allowed himself a grim smile. Let her think she was winning. The door to his home office creaked open, and Felicity poked her head in. "Eli, you've been up here for hours. Everything okay?" He looked up, his face a mask of calm. "Just catching up on some work, honey. You know how it is with the new bridge project." Felicity entered the room, perching on the edge of his desk. Her perfume different from her usual scent, he noted wafted over him. "You work too hard," she said, running a hand through his hair. "Why don't you take a break? We could open a bottle of wine, watch a movie." Eli leaned in her touch, even as revulsion churned in his gut. "That sounds nice, but I really need to finish this." "Rain check." "Of course," Felicity said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Oh, by the way, I was thinking of making a larger investment in that startup I told you about. The projections look amazing." Eli nodded, keeping his voice neutral. "How much were you thinking?" "Well," Felicity hesitated, then plunged ahead. "I was thinking we could transfer about $500,000. I know it sounds like a lot, but the potential returns—" "500,000? Eli interrupted, letting a note of surprise creep into his voice. "That's quite a sum, Fel." Felicity's hand found his, her touch warm but insistent. I know. But trust me on this, Eli. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And with your bridge contract and my work at Technova, we can afford to take a risk, right?" Eli met her gaze, searching for any flicker of guilt, any sign that she knew she was trying to rob him blind. But all he saw was earnest excitement, and beneath it, a calculating glint that he'd somehow missed for all these years. "Let me think about it," he said finally. "It's a big decision. We should discuss it more before making any moves." Felicity's smile faltered slightly, but she recovered quickly. "Of course, darling. No rush. Just don't wait too long, okay? These opportunities don't come around every day." As she left the room, Eli turned back to his computer. With a few quick keystrokes, he logged into their joint account and transferred all but a few $1,000s into the protected trust he'd set up. Let Felicity try to make her big investment now. The next morning, Eli was in the kitchen making coffee when he heard Felicity's panicked voice from upstairs. "What the hell?" she muttered, loud enough for him to hear. He listened as her footsteps thundered down the stairs. Eli, did you see this?" He turned, feigning confusion. "See what, honey?" Felicity thrust her phone in his face, her hands shaking. Our account. It's almost empty. How is this possible? Eli peered at the screen, his brow furrowed in mock concern. What? That can't be right. Let me see. He took the phone, scrolling through the transaction history as if seeing it for the first time. This doesn't make any sense. We had over $500,000 in there yesterday. I know. Felicity's voice was shrill. It's all gone, Eli. What are we going to do? Eli set the phone down, his mind racing. This was his chance to see just how far Felicity would go to cover her tracks. Okay, let's not panic. We need to call the bank, report this. It has to be some kind of mistake or fraud. Felicity's face paled. Fraud? You think someone hacked our account? It's possible, Eli said, reaching for his own phone. I'll call the bank right now. We'll get to the bottom of this, Fel. Don't worry. As he dialed, watching Felicity out of the corner of his eye, Eli felt a twinge of satisfaction. Let her squirm. Let her try to explain away her own thievery. He'd give her just enough rope to hang herself. The call to the bank went exactly as Eli had planned. The representative confirmed that there had been no unauthorized access to the account. All recent transactions had been made using valid credentials. As he relayed this information to Felicity, he watched the color drain from her face. But that's impossible, she stammered. We didn't make any large withdrawals. Did we, Eli? Eli shook his head slowly. Not that I remember. Unless. He let his voice trail off, a seed of suspicion planted. Felicity latched onto it immediately. Unless what? Eli, what are you thinking? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's just, you mentioned that investment opportunity. The startup, you were talking about a large sum. Is it possible you? No. Felicity's denial was vehement. No, Eli. I would never make a move like that without discussing it with you first. You know that. Eli nodded, his face a mask of concern. Of course. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have suggested it. I'm just trying to make sense of this. Felicity's phone buzzed, and she glanced at it, her eyes widening. It's Carter, she said. He's asking about the investment. What should I tell him? The truth, Eli said firmly. That there's been some kind of mistake with our account, and we need to sort it out before we can move forward with any investments. As Felicity typed out a response, her fingers shaking slightly, Eli watched her closely. He could almost see the gears turning in her head, trying to figure out how to salvage her plan. Listen, he said, his voice gentle. Why don't you go into the office today? Talk to Carter in person, explain the situation. I'll stay here, keep working with the bank to figure out what happened. Felicity looked up, relief washing over her face. Are you sure? You don't need me here? Eli shook his head. Go. I've got this handled. We'll get it sorted out, I promise. As Felicity rushed to get ready for work, Eli allowed himself a small, grim smile. Phase 1 of his plan was complete. Now it was time to set the next part in motion. Over the next few weeks, Eli watched as Felicity grew increasingly agitated. Her phone calls with Carter became more frequent, often ending in hushed arguments. She was working later than ever, coming home with dark circles under her eyes and a tightness around her mouth that spoke of barely contained panic. One evening, as they sat at the dinner table picking at a meal Felicity had barely touched, Eli decided to push things further. Fel, he said, his voice carefully neutral. I've been thinking, maybe we should consider downsizing. With the financial situation being what it is, Felicity's head snapped up, her eyes wide. Downsizing? Eli, no. We can't. This is just a temporary setback. We'll figure it out. Will we? Eli said. It's been weeks, and we're no closer to understanding what happened to our money. The bank says there was no fraud. I hate to say it, but could someone we know have accessed the account? The color drained from Felicity's face. What are you saying? Eli shrugged, his expression troubled. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Unless what? Felicity's voice was barely above a whisper. Unless one of us took the money, Eli said, meeting her gaze steadily. And I know I didn't. The silence that followed was deafening. Felicity stared at him, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Finally, she pushed back from the table, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. I can't believe you're accusing me, she said, her voice shaking with anger, or was it fear? After everything we've been through, everything we've built together. How dare you? Eli held up his hands, the picture of a confused, hurt husband. I'm not accusing you, Fel. I'm just trying to make sense of this. If you didn't take the money, then who did? Felicity turned away, her shoulders tight with tension. I don't know, but I'll find out. I promise you that. As she stormed out of the room, Eli allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. The noose was tightening. It was only a matter of time before Felicity made a mistake, revealing her true colors once and for all. The following Saturday, Eli put the next phase of his plan into action. He'd been quietly monitoring Felicity's movements, noting the pattern of her secret meetings with Carter. Today, he knew they were scheduled to meet at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel, a favorite rendezvous spot, according to the conversations he'd overheard. Eli arrived at the hotel well before the arranged meeting time, positioning himself in the lobby with a clear view of the entrance. He nursed a coffee, a newspaper spread out before him as camouflage. At precisely 2:15 p.m., Felicity walked through the doors. Eli's breath caught in his throat at the sight of her. She was wearing a dress he'd never seen before, her hair and makeup done with more care than she usually took for a work meeting. The pang in his chest surprised him even now. Knowing what he knew, part of him still loved her. But then Carter appeared, striding across the lobby to meet her. The way Felicity's face lit up at the sight of him, the familiar way Carter's hand came to rest on the small of her back, it was all the confirmation Eli needed. Keeping his movements casual, Eli raised his phone, snapping a series of photos. The couple, too engrossed in each other, never noticed. As they made their way to the elevators, heads bent close in conversation, Eli felt a cold fury settle over him. This was the evidence he needed to blow Felicity's carefully constructed world apart. Back at home, Eli set his plan in motion. He sent out invitations for a dinner party, framing it as a celebration of his firm's success with the bridge project. Felicity, caught off guard by the sudden social engagement, could hardly refuse. The night of the party arrived, and Eli played the gracious host to perfection. He greeted their friends and colleagues warmly, making sure everyone's glass was full and the conversation was flowing. Felicity flitted about nervously, her eyes darting to him every few minutes as if trying to gauge his mood. As the meal wound down, Eli stood, tapping his glass for attention. I want to thank you all for coming tonight, he began, his voice steady. It means the world to Felicity and me to be surrounded by such wonderful friends and supporters. Felicity beamed up at him, visibly relaxing. Eli met her gaze, allowing a small smile to play at the corners of his mouth. In fact, he continued, I have a special surprise for everyone. A little multimedia presentation, if you will. He moved to the entertainment center, pressing a button on the remote. The large TV screen flickered to life, and suddenly, Felicity's voice filled the room. I've been meaning to tell you that I started an affair with my boss. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Felicity. Her face had gone chalk white, her eyes wide with horror as she recognized her own voice. The recording continued, merciless. First, I need to drain all the money out of this fool, and then I'll arrange the maximum humiliation for him and throw him out like garbage. As the last words faded, Eli clicked to the next slide. The photo of Felicity and Carter at the hotel lobby appeared on the screen, larger than life. I think, Eli said into the stunned silence, that my wife has some explaining to do. Chaos erupted. Felicity leapt to her feet, her chair toppling backward. Eli, no, it's not what you think. I can explain. But her protest fell on deaf ears. Their friends and colleagues were already backing away, murmuring in shock and disgust. Carter, who had been invited as part of Eli's plan, sat frozen in his seat, his face a mask of panic. Eli turned to face Felicity, his voice cold. Explain what, exactly? How you've been lying to me, stealing from me, planning to destroy me. Please, Felicity. I'm all ears. Felicity's eyes darted around the room, searching for an ally and finding none. You recorded me? You've been spying on me? How dare you? How dare I? Eli's laugh was without humor. That's rich, coming from you. You're the one who's been having an affair, planning to drain our accounts. Tell me, Felicity, how long have you been laughing at me behind my back? Tears streamed down Felicity's face as she turned to their guests, desperate. It's not true. He's twisting everything. Carter and I, it's just business. Tell them, Carter. But Carter was already backing towards the door, his hands held up in surrender. I'm sorry, Felicity. I can't be involved in this. I'm sorry. As Carter fled the scene, leaving Felicity to face the consequences alone, Eli felt a grim satisfaction settle over him. The truth was out. Felicity's carefully constructed web of lies was unraveling before his eyes. One by one, their guests made their excuses and left, unable to meet either Eli or Felicity's gaze. Soon, the couple was left alone in the wreckage of their dinner party and their marriage. Felicity collapsed into a chair, her body racked with sobs. How could you do this to me? She choked out. In front of everyone, Eli stood over her, unmoved by her tears. How could I do this to you? That's a joke, right? You were planning to destroy me, Felicity, to take everything I've worked for and leave me with nothing. Did you really think I'd just stand by and let that happen? Felicity looked up at him, her makeup streaked down her face. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she whispered. I never meant to hurt you. I wanted more. Can't you understand that? For a moment, Eli felt a flicker of the love he'd once held for this woman, but he squashed it ruthlessly. Understand? No, Felicity. I don't understand betrayal. I don't understand how you could throw away 15 years of marriage for, what? Money? A fling with your boss? He shook his head, disgust evident in every line of his body. Pack your things. I want you out of this house by morning. As he turned to leave the room, Felicity's voice stopped him. Where am I supposed to go? Eli looked back at her, his eyes cold. That's not my problem anymore. You made your choice, Felicity. Now you get to live with it. With that, he walked away, leaving Felicity alone with the ruins of her carefully laid plans. As he climbed the stairs to their bedroom, now Eli felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The truth was out. The battle was won. But the war, he knew, was far from over. Felicity wouldn't go down without a fight, and Eli was prepared to do whatever it took to ensure she left this marriage with nothing more than the clothes on her back. As he lay in bed that night, listening to the muffled sounds of Felicity moving about downstairs, Eli allowed himself a grim smile. Phase 2 was complete. Now it was time to destroy her completely. The morning after the disastrous dinner party, Eli awoke to an empty house. Felicity had fled sometime in the night, leaving behind only a hastily scrawled note. This isn't over. Eli crumpled the paper in his fist, a grim smile playing at the corners of his mouth. No, he muttered to himself, it certainly isn't. He made his way to the kitchen, brewing a strong cup of coffee as he mentally prepared for the day ahead. The first order of business. Calling his lawyer, Avery Caldwell. The phone rang twice before Avery's crisp voice came through. Eli, I was expecting your call. How are you holding up? Eli took a sip of his coffee, his voice steady. I'm fine, Avery, but we need to move fast. Felicity's gone, and I want to make sure she can't touch a penny of what's mine. Understood, Avery replied. I've already drawn up the divorce papers. We can file them today if you're ready. Do it, Eli said without hesitation. And Avery, I want full custody of the kids. There was a pause on the other end of the line. That might be tricky, Eli. Courts tend to favor joint custody unless there's clear evidence of unfitness. Eli's grip tightened on his mug. Then we'll get that evidence. I'm not letting her poison my children against me. Set up a meeting with a private investigator. I want to know every move Felicity makes. All right, Avery agreed. I'll make the arrangements. But Eli, be prepared. This could get ugly. It already is, Eli replied grimly. I'll see you at the office in an hour. As he hung up, Eli's phone buzzed with a text from Tessa, his 14-year-old daughter. Dad, what's going on? Mom's not answering her phone. Are you guys fighting? Eli closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. This was the part he'd been dreading, explaining the situation to his children. But he knew he had to control the narrative before Felicity could twist things to her advantage. He typed out a reply. Tessa, I need to talk to you and Noah. Can you both come home after school today? It's important. The response came quickly. Sure, Dad. Is everything okay? We'll talk when you get home, Eli wrote back. I love you both. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of legal meetings and phone calls. By the time Eli returned home, he felt drained but resolute. The divorce papers had been filed, and the wheels were in motion to secure his assets and his children's future. At 3:30 p.m., he heard the front door open, followed by the sound of his children's voices. Dad! Noah called out, his 10-year-old voice tinged with worry. Eli stepped into the hallway, forcing a smile onto his face. Hey kids, thanks for coming straight home. Let's go sit in the living room, okay? As they settled onto the couch, Tessa and Noah exchanging nervous glances, Eli took a deep breath. I have something difficult to tell you both, he began. Your mother and I, we're getting a divorce. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Noah burst into tears. But why? He sobbed. Don't you love Mom anymore? Eli moved to sit between his children, putting an arm around each of them. Of course I love your mother, he said softly. But sometimes, even when people love each other, they can't stay together. Your mom, she made some choices that hurt our family very badly. Tessa, always the more perceptive of the two, looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. What did she do, Dad? Eli hesitated, weighing his words carefully. He didn't want to turn his children against their mother, but he also couldn't let Felicity control the narrative. Your mother was unfaithful, he said finally. She was seeing someone else, and she tried to take a lot of money from our family. Tessa's eyes widened in shock, while Noah just looked confused. But why would Mom do that? The boy asked. I don't know, buddy, Eli replied, his voice thick with emotion. Sometimes people make bad choices, even when they have everything they need to be happy. For the next hour, Eli fielded questions from his children, doing his best to be honest without demonizing Felicity. By the time they were called away for dinner, both kids were subdued but seemed to be processing the news. As Eli watched them head to the kitchen, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Felicity. We need to talk. Meet me at the park tomorrow at noon. Eli's jaw clenched. He typed back a curt reply, fine, but bring your lawyer. The next day, Eli arrived at the park 5 minutes early, his own lawyer in tow. Felicity was already there, pacing nervously near the fountain. To Eli's surprise, she was alone. As he approached, Felicity looked up, her eyes red and puffy. Eli, she said, her voice wavering. Thank you for coming. Eli nodded curtly, keeping his distance. What do you want, Felicity? She took a step towards him, then seemed to think better of it. I wanted to apologize. What I did was unforgivable, I know that. But please, Eli, can we work something out? For the kids' sake. Eli's laugh was hollow. Work something out? Are you serious? You were planning to destroy me, Felicity, to take everything I've worked for, and now you want to work something out? Felicity's shoulders slumped. I know I messed up. I got caught up in something I couldn't control, but I love our children, Eli. Please don't take them away from me. Like you were planning to take them away from me? Eli countered, his voice cold. I heard your plans, remember? You were going to throw me out like garbage. Did you think about what that would do to Tessa and Noah? Tears streamed down Felicity's face. I wasn't thinking clearly. Carter, he filled my head with all these promises. But it was a mistake, Eli. I see that now. Please, can't we start over? For a moment, Eli felt a flicker of the love he'd once held for this woman, but he squashed it ruthlessly. No, Felicity, we can't. What's done is done. My lawyer will be in touch with the terms of the divorce and custody arrangements. As he turned to leave, Felicity called out, her voice desperate. Eli, wait. What about the kids? Can I at least see them? Eli paused, not turning back. That's up to them. I won't force them to see you if they don't want to. You'll have to live with the consequences of your actions, Felicity, just like I've had to. With that, he walked away, leaving Felicity sobbing by the fountain. As he climbed into his car, his lawyer gave him an approving nod. You handled that well, Eli. Now let's talk about our next move. Over the following weeks, the divorce proceedings moved forward at a rapid pace. Eli's meticulous planning and the evidence he'd gathered left Felicity with little room to maneuver. Her attempts to claim a share of his assets were shut down swiftly, thanks to the trust Eli had set up. One afternoon, as Eli sat in Avery's office reviewing the latest documents, his phone rang. It was Carter Jennings. Eli's eyebrows shot up in surprise. He answered, his voice cool. "Carter, to what do I owe the pleasure?" "Eli, listen." Carter's voice was hushed, panicked. "I need your help. The board, they're investigating me for financial misconduct. I think Felicity might have implicated me in something. Can we talk?" Eli leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Oh, I think we have a lot to talk about, Carter. Why don't you come by my office tomorrow morning? We can clear the air." The next day, Carter arrived at Eli's firm looking like a shadow of his former self. His designer suit was rumpled, dark circles under his eyes betraying sleepless nights. "Eli," he began as soon as he was shown into the office, "I know you have every reason to hate me, but please, you have to believe me. I never meant for things to go this far. Felicity, she had this whole plan. Said we could start a new life together with your money. I was stupid, I know that now." Eli regarded him coldly. "So you're saying it was all Felicity's idea? That you're just an innocent victim in all this?" Carter ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "No, not innocent. But I swear, Eli, I didn't know about the money until it was too late. And now, God, my whole career is on the line. If the board finds out..." "Finds out what? Exactly?" Eli Presser. Carter slumped in his chair. "Felicity, she used some of the money she took from your accounts to invest in a fake startup. It was supposed to be our nest egg, but now the board is asking questions about where the funds came from. If they trace it back to me..." Eli leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. "Let me be very clear, Carter. I don't give a damn about your career or your reputation. You try to steal my wife and my money. As far as I'm concerned, you deserve everything that's coming to you. Please," Carter begged, his voice breaking. "There must be something I could do to make this right. I'll testify against Felicity in the divorce proceedings. I'll do anything." Eli studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, Carter. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me every detail of your little scheme with Felicity. Every conversation, every plan, every dollar that changed hands. And then you're going to repeat all of it to my lawyer. Do that, and maybe, just maybe, I won't make sure the board knows exactly what kind of man they have running their company." Carter nodded eagerly, relief washing over his face. "Yes, of course. Anything you want to know." For the next 2 hours, Eli listened as Carter spilled every sordid detail of his affair with Felicity and their plans to steal Eli's fortune. By the time Carter left, looking shell-shocked and defeated, Eli had all the ammunition he needed to ensure Felicity wouldn't see a penny of his money or have any claim to custody of their children. The final showdown came 3 months later, in the austere setting of a courtroom. Felicity, looking pale and drawn, sat on one side with her lawyer. Eli, composed and confident, sat on the other with Avery. The judge, a stern-looking woman in her 60s, peered down at them over her glasses. "Before we proceed, is there any chance of reconciliation between the parties?" Eli's voice was firm. "No, Your Honor. The dissolution of this marriage is final and irrevocable." Felicity's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client is willing to negotiate a fair settlement. We believe that given the length of the marriage and Mrs. Langston's contributions as a homemaker and mother..." "Objection, Your Honor," Avery interrupted smoothly. "Mrs. Langston's contributions included an extramarital affair and attempted theft of marital assets. We have evidence and testimony to support this claim." The judge nodded. "Very well. Present your evidence, counselor." For the next hour, Eli watched as Avery methodically laid out their case. The recorded conversations, the bank statements showing Felicity's attempts to siphon money, and finally, Carter Jennings' sworn testimony about their affair and financial schemes. Felicity's face grew paler with each new piece of evidence. By the time Avery finished, she looked ready to faint. The judge turned to Felicity's lawyer. "Counselor, do you have any response to these allegations?" Felicity's lawyer, looking flustered, stood. "Your Honor, while my client acknowledges some indiscretions, We maintain that Mr. Langston's actions in gathering this evidence were invasive and potentially illegal. We ask that it be stricken from the record. The judge's eyes narrowed. Denied. Mr. Langston's methods, while unorthodox, were not illegal given the circumstances. Now, Mrs. Langston, do you have anything to say for yourself? Felicity stood, her voice shaking. Your Honor, I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But I love my children. Please don't take them away from me. The judge's voice was cold. Mrs. Langston, love for one's children does not excuse attempted theft and infidelity. Based on the evidence presented, I'm granting Mr. Langston's petition for divorce on the grounds of adultery and financial misconduct. Eli felt a weight lift from his shoulders as the judge continued. Furthermore, Mr. Langston is awarded full custody of the minor children, Tessa and Noah Langston. Mrs. Langston will have supervised visitation rights, to be determined at a later date. As for the division of assets, given Mrs. Langston's attempts to defraud Mr. Langston, she will receive no alimony or share of the marital assets. Felicity let out a choked sob, collapsing into her chair. Her lawyer looked stunned. The judge banged her gavel. This court is adjourned. As Eli stood to leave, he caught Felicity's eye. For a moment, he saw a flicker of the woman he'd once loved broken, desperate, pleading silently for mercy. But then he remembered her words, her plans to destroy him, and his heart hardened. Goodbye, Felicity, he said quietly, before turning and walking out of the courtroom. In the weeks that followed, Eli focused on rebuilding his life and helping his children adjust to their new reality. Tessa and Noah were struggling, but with therapy and Eli's unwavering support, they were slowly healing. One evening, as Eli sat on the back porch watching Noah play in the yard, Tessa joined him. Dad, she said hesitantly, I got a text from Mom today. She wants to see us. Eli turned to his daughter, studying her face. How do you feel about that, sweetheart? Tessa shrugged, her eyes downcast. I don't know. Part of me misses her, but I'm still so angry about what she did to you. To us. Eli put an arm around her shoulders. It's okay to have mixed feelings, Tessa. Your mom made some terrible choices, but she's still your mother. If you want to see her, we can arrange it, but only if you're sure. Tessa leaned into him, silent for a long moment. Not yet, she said finally. Maybe someday, but not yet. Eli nodded, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. Whenever you're ready, sweetheart. There's no rush. As the sun set over their backyard, Eli felt a sense of peace settle over him. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he had his children, his integrity, and the life he'd worked so hard to build. Felicity and her schemes were behind him now, nothing more than a painful chapter in a book he'd closed for good. The next morning, Eli received a call from Avery. It's done, his lawyer said. The house is sold. Felicity tried to contest it, but given the judge's ruling, she didn't have a leg to stand on. Eli nodded, a grim satisfaction settling over him. Good. What about her personal belongings? As per your instructions, they've been packed and moved to a storage unit, Avery replied. She has 30 days to claim them before they're donated to charity. Perfect, Eli said. And Carter? Avery's voice held a note of amusement. Let's just say his career at Technova is over. The board didn't take kindly to his indiscretions. As Eli hung up the phone, he allowed himself a small smile. Justice, it seemed, had been served. That evening, as he helped Noah with his homework and listened to Tessa practice her violin, Eli felt a surge of gratitude. Despite everything, he still had what mattered most: his children, his home, and his dignity. Felicity had tried to take everything from him, but in the end, she'd lost it all herself. As for forgiveness, well, that was a bridge Eli had no intention of ever crossing. One crisp autumn morning, as Eli sipped his coffee and reviewed some blueprints for a new project, his phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Eli Langston speaking, he answered, his voice professional and detached. Eli, came a familiar voice, tinged with desperation. It's me, Felicity. Eli's grip tightened on his mug, but his voice remained steady. What do you want, Felicity? I need help, she said, her words tumbling out in a rush. I can't find work. No one will hire me after everything. I'm about to be evicted from my apartment. Please, Eli. I have nowhere else to turn. For a moment, Eli felt a flicker of pity. But then he remembered the coldness in her voice as she plotted to destroy him, and his resolve hardened. That's not my problem anymore, Felicity, he said firmly. You made your choices. Now you have to live with them. But what about the children? Felicity pleaded. Don't they deserve to have their mother in their lives? Eli's voice turned cold. You should have thought about that before you try to take them away from me. The kids will decide if and when they want to see you. Until then, I suggest you focus on getting your life together. Eli, please, he cut her off. Goodbye, Felicity. Don't call this number again. As he hung up, Eli let out a long breath. He meant what he said. Felicity's problems were her own now. He had a family to protect and a life to rebuild. Later that week, Eli received an unexpected visitor at his office. It was Shonda, Felicity's former friend and confidant. Mr. Langston, she said, hovering nervously in the doorway. I hope I'm not interrupting. Eli gestured for her to enter. What can I do for you, Shonda? She sat down, wringing her hands. I wanted to apologize. For my part in all of this, I should have told you what Felicity was planning, but I was a coward. Eli studied her for a long moment. Why are you really here, Shonda? I doubt it's just to clear your conscience. Shonda's shoulders slumped. You're right. It's Felicity. She's not doing well. She's talking about doing something drastic. I'm worried about her, and I thought maybe if you talked to her. Eli shook his head firmly. No, I'm sorry Felicity is struggling, but that's not my responsibility anymore. She made her bed. Now she has to lie in it. But, no tuts, Eli interrupted. I suggest you encourage Felicity to seek professional help. That's the best thing you can do for her now. After Shonda left, Eli sat back in his chair, lost in thought. He felt no joy in Felicity's downfall, but neither did he feel any obligation to help her. His priority now was his children and his own healing. As the year drew to a close, Eli focused on creating new holiday traditions with Tessa and Noah. They decorated the house together, baked cookies, and planned a small Christmas celebration with just the three of them. On Christmas Eve, as they sat around the fireplace, drinking hot chocolate, Tessa broached the subject they'd all been avoiding. Dad, she said hesitantly, do you think we should invite Mom for Christmas dinner tomorrow? Eli set down his mug, choosing his words carefully. That's a big question, sweetheart. How do you feel about it? Both of you, he added, looking at Noah. Noah shrugged, his eyes downcast. I miss Mom sometimes, he admitted quietly. But I'm also still mad at her. Tessa nodded. Yeah, me too. But it's Christmas, you know? Maybe we could. I don't know. Try. Eli took a deep breath. If that's what you both want, we can invite her. But I want you to understand something. Your mom made some very bad choices that hurt our family deeply. While I won't stop you from having a relationship with her, if that's what you want, I don't foresee a time when she and I will be friends or anything more than civil co-parents. Are you okay with that? Both children nodded solemnly. All right then, Eli said, reaching for his phone. I'll give her a call. The next day, Felicity arrived for Christmas dinner looking nervous and out of place. She'd lost weight, and there were new lines around her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and constant worry. Thank you for inviting me, she said softly as Eli let her in. He nodded curtly. The kids wanted you here, but let me be clear, this changes nothing between us. You're here for them, not for me. Felicity's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. I understand. And Eli, I'm sorry for everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know that. Eli's face remained impassive. You're right. It doesn't change anything. Now let's get through this dinner for the kids' sake. The meal was awkward, filled with stilted conversation and long silences. But as Eli watched Tessa and Noah interact with their mother, he saw glimmers of the family they'd once been. It hurt, but he knew he'd made the right choice in allowing this meeting. After Felicity left, promising to keep in touch with the children, Eli sat alone in the living room, nursing a glass of whiskey. He'd survived the dinner, maintained his composure, and even managed to be civil. But the anger and hurt still simmered beneath the surface. As he stared into the dying embers of the fire, Eli made a silent vow. He would never let anyone hurt him or his children like that again. He'd rebuild his life, stronger and better than before. And Felicity, well, she'd have to find her own way now. The new year brought fresh challenges and opportunities. Eli's firm landed a major contract to design a series of eco-friendly bridges across the state. The project would keep him busy for months, but he made sure to balance his work with time for Tessa and Noah. One evening, as he helped Tessa with her college applications, she looked up at him with a serious expression. "Dad," she said, "I've been thinking about Mom and everything that happened." Eli set down the application form, giving his daughter his full attention. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" Tessa took a deep breath. I think I'm ready to forgive her. Not forget, but forgive. Is that okay?" Eli felt a lump form in his throat. He reached out, taking Tessa's hand in his. "Of course it's okay. Forgiveness is a personal choice, and if that's what you feel is right for you, then I support you completely." "But you don't forgive her," Tessa said. It wasn't a question. Eli shook his head slowly. "No, I don't. What your mother did, it's not something I can forgive. But that doesn't mean you can't. Your relationship with her is separate from mine." Tessa nodded, squeezing her father's hand. "Thanks, Dad, for everything, for being so strong through all of this." As spring bloomed across Seattle, Eli felt a sense of renewal in his own life. The pain of Felicity's betrayal had dulled to a distant ache, overshadowed by the joy he found in his work and his children. One sunny afternoon, as he stood on the site of his latest bridge project, overlooking the sparkling waters of Puget Sound, Eli allowed himself a moment of reflection. He'd weathered the storm, emerged stronger, and kept his family intact. Felicity had tried to destroy him, but in the end, she'd only succeeded in destroying herself. Eli turned back to his team, ready to dive into the day's work. The future stretched out before him, full of possibilities. And this time, he'd face it on his own terms, unburdened by betrayal and secure in the knowledge that he could overcome anything life threw his way. As he drove home that evening, Eli felt a sense of peace settle over him. The road ahead might not always be smooth, but he was ready for whatever came next. He had his children, his integrity, and a life rebuilt on his own terms. Felicity and her schemes were nothing more than a closed chapter in his life story. And as for forgiveness, well, some bridges were better left unbuilt.